Oh, no, that's a big deal.
Over there. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Birmingham City Commission here in the municipal building at 151 Martin on today, January 13th, 2025. If you'd like to join in us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Bingham, roll call, please.
Mayor Therese Long.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baller is absent. Commissioner Emmering.
Here.
Commissioner Haig.
Here.
Commissioner Host.
Here.
Commissioner Anthony Long.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here. Thank you. We now move to proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, awards, appointments, resignations, confirmations, administration of oaths, and introduction of guests of announcements. We have no announcements this evening except to wish everyone a happy new year and hope you all had a good holiday. We have several appointments this evening. We are going to begin with appointments to the Environmental Sustainability Committee. As you know, that committee transitioned from a ad hoc committee to a full committee. We have two applicants this evening, and in the order in which their applications were received, we will call them up to the microphone and ask them to say a few words about why they're interested in being appointed. The first applicant this evening is Laura Edwards, who was on the ad hoc.
Do we want to appoint somebody as mayor pro tem?
Oh, yes, thank you, Commissioner Long. I neglected to note that because Commissioner Baller is absent, we need to nominate a temporary mayor pro tem. So could we?
I'll make a nomination if that's okay.
Thank
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Katie Schaefer to act as mayor pro tem this evening in Commissioner Baller's absence.
Do you accept?
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and now, Ms. Edwards, thank you. I apologize for the interruption.
No, it's no problem. My name is Laura Edwards. I live at 1636 Bowers Street. And hello, commissioners. Hello, Birmingham residents. I had the pleasure of being part of the ad hoc committee to create the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. It's amazing. City staff are absolutely incredible. The planners worked, I think the technical term is bonkers hard on it, and it's something we're really proud of. And now is the fun part, in my opinion, is putting it to work and seeing how we can make it work for the city of Birmingham. So I was part of the multimodal committee years ago and just found that part implementing a plan to be incredibly delightful. So, and then just as a background, I work for Friends of the Rouge. I'm the development director, and just sort of seeped in knowledge, information about both the river and stormwater issues. So things that we'll be thinking about as a city as we build our resilience into the future. And then finally, I do vote in the city of Birmingham. I looked at my answers and I was like, oh, early and often. So I am a voting resident and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your consideration,
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Any questions for Ms. Edwards? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next applicant is Sarah Rubino.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and residents. My name's Sarah Rubino, and I am a Birmingham resident. I live at 2008 Pembroke. I was born and raised in Birmingham, moved away, and came right back to where I grew up. I have been a resident here, homeowner, for about 15 years. And I also work for Oakland County for the Water Resources Commissioner. I'm a government policy attorney there. And so as part of my job, I focus a lot on environmental sustainability, helping to develop policies throughout the county, as well as regional collaboration. So all things water resources, from drinking water to sanitary sewer to storm waters, is kind of what I touch. But as a resident, I was very excited to learn about the composting program, and I really wanted to get involved when I heard about that. I've been with the county for about 4 years and have been developing such a deep appreciation for local government. So thank you for your service to our city. And I was really motivated to get involved as well. So I hope that my professional experience can help enhance my community. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Rubino? Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we have several positions open on the Environmental Sustainability Committee this evening. We have 3 regular positions, regular member positions, 1 expiring in 2027, 2 in 2026, and then 2 alternate positions. Do any commission members have any nominations?
I'd like to
Commissioner
make one if I
Anthony
may.
Long.
I'd be honored to appoint Laura Edwards as a regular member to the Environmental Sustainability Board to serve a 2-year term to expire on February 1st, 2027.
Okay, any other nominations? Commissioner Host.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Rubino to appoint as a regular member of the Environmental Sustainability Board to serve a 2-year term expiring February 1st, 2027.
6.
That'd be a 1-year term.
That would be a 1-year term.
Oh, I'm sorry,
2026.
26.
A 1-year term,
26.
2026. All right.
Yeah. I think these are both outstanding candidates, but Madam Mayor, can I ask, have we contacted the gentleman that didn't make it on the ad hoc committee, who is Ford's green person?
I believe Nick Dupuy was following up on that, but I don't know the answer to that question. So all in favor of appointing Laura Edwards as a regular member for a 2-year term expiring February 1, 2027? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All in favor of appointing Sarah Rubino as a regular member for a 1-year term expiring February 1st, 2026? Aye. Any opposed? None. Congratulations on your appointments. If you will both please stay with us until we complete the other 2 appointments this evening, and then Ms. Bingham will swear everyone in at once. So next we have an appointment to the Advisory Parking Committee. We have 1 candidate, William Kolb, who is applying to the Advisory Parking Committee as an alternate member to serve a 3-year term expiring September 4th, 2026. We also have additional openings on this committee, but the regular openings are for specific retail and small retail members, so Mr. Kolb qualifies to apply for the alternate position. And Mr. Kolb, if you'd like to come up and tell us why you're interested.
So it's good to see everybody again. Glad to be back. You all know from the last time I was here, I recently retired and moved back to Birmingham full-time, live at 411 South Old Woodward. And one of the pieces of advice you all gave me last time was find another place that interested you and get involved. So I went and looked at what was available. I was fascinated by the conversation you had with the gentleman that's already on the committee about the data. I used to run a data company, so it interested me, and I thought there was opportunities where I could add value there. And I wanted to find a place to get involved, and this one fit. So I wanted to come back the next possible chance, and having done my homework, I'd love to get involved.
All right, any questions for Mr. Kolb? Thank you very much. Do we have a nomination?
Yeah.
Commissioner Host.
I'd like to appoint William Kolb to the Advisory Parking Committee as an alternate member to serve a 3-year term to expire September 4th, 2026. And I'm going to say, I think in his former employment, he only rented 200 spaces in the Chester Street structure. That might be low.
All right, all in favor of appointing Mr. Kolb?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and now we move to the appointment to the Housing Board of Appeals. We have one applicant who is applying as a regular member to the Housing Board of Appeals to serve the remainder of a 3-year term that expires May 4th, 2026, and that is Mr. Tony Tayar, or Tayar?
I don't see him.
No present.
Not present? All right, not online? All right, well, it is our policy that if it's a new applicant that we have not seen before, we generally hold the appointment over to the next available meeting, if that is the commission's.
Yes.
And can other people apply?
Certainly.
Okay, good.
Certainly they can. This board meets very rarely, and I think it has more than one opening, so. Acceptable? All right, so we will pen that to the next meeting. So with that, Ms. Bingham can swear in our newly appointed members of the Environmental Sustainability and the Advisory Parking Committee.
If I can have those newly appointed members come on up. And you'll raise your right hand and you'll say, "I do," after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of this state, and endeavor to secure and maintain an honest and efficient administration of the affairs of Birmingham, free from partisan distinction or control, and to perform the duties of office of Environmental Sustainability Committee and Advisory Parking Committee according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
I already pre-filled everyone, so Laura.
Thank you.
And then Sarah.
You put Sarah Edwards.
I'll fix it.
Okay.
I'll fix it.
No problem.
And then Cole. It's the comment that I write name. Got me going. All right, I'll fix that. Thank you.
Welcome and thank you.
So Alex, we still have reports of no sound?
I pinged IT, they're working on it.
Okay, thank you. And now we have staff introductions, and we're going to begin with the building department.
All right, good evening, Mayor Long, Commissioners, Ms. Ecker. I'm Bruce Johnson, the current building official for the City of Birmingham, and it's my pleasure to introduce two outstanding members of the building department that have been promoted in preparation of my upcoming retirement this May. We'll start with Jeff Zilke. Jeff Zilke has been appointed or moved up to building official designee, so he'll be taking over my role when I do retire. Jeff has been with the city for 10 years now. And started as a building inspector / rental inspector. In 2017, he moved up to the plans examiner position. And then in 2019, became the assistant building official. Jeff has a degree in architecture, several credentials, including LEED certification. And Jeff was also appointed by the governor, I think 6 years ago, to sit on the Construction Code Commission, helping to oversee the Bureau of Construction Codes up in Lansing. So he represents the city very well at that level. Next, we have Andrew Erickson. Andrew's been with the city now for 7 years. After working a year or so in 2019, he was promoted to the plans examiner position. I think that's when Jeff moved up to assistant building official. Andrew stepped into the plans examiner position, and now he has been recently promoted to the assistant building official position. Andrew has a degree in construction technology, has worked in the construction industry, helped build several houses in the city, so he's very well experienced with the rules and regulations here. He was a key member of the staff when we went with our online plan review processes a few years ago. Andrew was a key member of staff that got that up and running, and he's definitely my go-to person when it comes to that. So if you join me in congratulating Jeff and Andrew on their recent promotions.
Congratulations. All right, and now we have the engineering department.
Good evening, City Commission. I would like to first introduce Mark Akram. He started in the engineering department as civil engineer back in November. He previously worked for various consulting firms prior to starting here at the City of Birmingham. He got his education in civil engineering technology from Windsor, Ontario, and then he received a civil engineering degree from the Institute of Technology from Carl in Ireland. So Mark's been a great asset so far for the engineering department, and we're glad he joined us here at the city. And then next up is Brian Hardy. He received a recent promotion here to senior engineering technician. He started here in the early 2000s, actually in Department of Public Services. And in 2020, he moved over to the engineering department as an inspector out in the field. With his promotion here, he's going to be a little bit more in the office, helping us with permits, construction management on projects, and some field work that we need to be completed. Currently, he started this in beginning of December, and he's been a great asset inside the office with this experience working at Department of Public Services and then out in the field in the engineering department.
Thank you. Congratulations. So we'd like to thank and congratulate our newly appointed members of our committees for their interest in their service, and thank our staff for their dedication to the city, and congratulate the 4 members here on their promotions. Now we're moving to the main portion of the meeting, and we were going to open to the public for matters not on the agenda. So if you would like to make a comment this evening on a matter that is not on this evening's agenda, you are welcome to come to the microphone, state your name and address, and make a comment of roughly no more than 3 minutes in length. And if you are online and you'd like to make a comment, you can use your raise your hand function, and we will call on you. Good evening.
Thank you so much. My name is David Coleman. I live at 445 Arlington Street. We just completed a recent renovation. The city just completed a recent renovation of our street, and they did a wonderful job, but now the concern is that Arlington surely essentially is functioning as a pass-through between Maple to Lincoln to get onto Southfield. And like most streets in Birmingham, a lot of young families, a lot of young children, and it's just becoming increasingly concern. It's an increasing concern to all of our neighbors about the speed of the cars going on Arlington and Shirley. It's a very wide street, as you guys know, and would love to work with you, your team. Brad has been very helpful in putting me in contact with David Hawker and others. So would just like to work with you guys and Brad, appreciate your involvement on how we can best address the issues on Arlington and Shirley. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Christy Barrett, 915 Harmon Street, and I'm here to make a couple comments within my 3 minutes. My husband Bruce and I have been property owners and taxpayers over 30 years in Birmingham. We've worked hard, saved, and retired, and hope to retire here to the end. We've raised 4 children in Birmingham, the last of which just turned 20 years old this year. We are senior citizens. In fact, for the last cohort of the baby boomer generation, which will be 80 years old in 15 years. 82% of Birmingham residents are not seniors. Most have dependent children and are still supporting them. Even like us, even in our later years, we're paying off college fees. We're generally helping them launch their lives, as most parents do. We worked very hard for over 40 years before we retired. We weighed every major purchase, our cars, our vacation. If we couldn't afford it, we waited until we could, or we gave up something else. Both of our cars are 12 years old. We have been fiscally responsible. The City Commission is the only elected body to represent the community's interests, including the 18% greater than 65 years old and the 92% that are less than 65. So every decision the City Commission makes or a resolution requested has a financial impact on all of us. The current taxable value of property in Birmingham is over $3 billion. Taxable values increased $2 billion each year over the last 4 years, primarily due to new builds from teardowns. Although the SIMCOG data states that the taxable value is $600,000, that's not what a 3-year run rate of a new build rate indicates. When you look at the sales, the average sales are $900,000, but that also includes teardowns. Even if your home is 30 to 40 years old, the taxes still go up, usually the last 2 years to the maximum 5%, even, thank God to the Headley Amendment and Proposition A. Sewage fees increased by 17%, water fees increased by 20%. In addition to the expected city, school, county, and state, we have county parks and rec millage increased 70%, HCMA, Oakland Transit, Zoo Authority, Art Authority, senior millage, city parks and rec bond. Additional, just in general, the cost of living increase. The interest rates are high. They are projected to remain high. Cost of food, health care, home insurance, DTE has requested another rate increase of 10%. Every single FTE the city adds to the expense is a benefit cost. Birmingham's increased their FTEs by over 24 in the last 4 years. That's all funded by taxpayers. It all adds up. It adds up to a point of not being able to age in place. If you want to sell your home to access your home equity, you're going to pay a realtor 6%, and if you've been in your home 40 years, more than likely you're going to pay capital gains on greater than $250,000. So those are things that seniors have their way about selling. So every decision you make or you agree to, the City Commission, please consider the financial impact to everyone, including the 25% of residents who rent, because the non-homestead owners are going to pass that cost on. I recently read the Aging in Place survey, and there was a narrative question that said, what concerns do you have about aging in place? A top response was annual increased taxes on a fixed income. Many people in the community feel the same way. No decision that has an expense should be considered without 100% exposure, validation, and quantified information. Just as you are considering placing a stop sign at Oak and Glenhurst, a copious amount of professional information was needed and will be presented to make a sound decision. All of the city committees and ad hoc committees exist to make a recommendation. You, the City Commission, make the decisions. If you do not have all of the information to answer, just say no. Or say, we will wait until all of the information is presented as well as the data requested, and we are comfortable making a decision. The community asks the City Commission to weigh every decision as if it were your own budget and you were sitting at your own kitchen table and in the best interest of your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other public comment in the room?
We still don't have sound, so I don't know if that
Yes.
matters.
And we still do not currently have sound.
That
the-
IT has assured me that it's working on their end, and they've tested it on both fronts. So maybe it is a user issue?
Okay.
Is this a Zoom or a Vimeo issue? Because Vimeo routinely doesn't work.
Apparently, it's a no TV sound issue.
No TV sound issue?
That is what the text is that I received.
Yeah.
Because
It's
I
a
know
what?
I regularly hear
TV
Vimeo has
sound.
no sound and no connection.
That would be the BB, so that might be on the cable, Birmingham
End.
Field cable end.
Yes.
So the recommendation would be to watch it on Vimeo?
Assuming it's working.
Yes, I just received a text from a resident who says that they have sound on Zoom when they're.
Zoom,
If they're
yes.
on the web, following the meeting on Zoom, which you can do, you can hear. But apparently there is a cable broadcast issue at this point that we don't control. But have we reached out to them?
We do not control it, but yes, we have reached out to them.
Okay, so we are doing what we can, but you can go online to the city calendar, find this meeting, and link there, can you? Not to watch the meeting on the web.
Yes, if you go on the city's website, you can, one of the choices is how can I or how do I
Watch a
watch a
meeting.
live meeting? Boom, you click
And you
on
can
that.
pick the city commission meeting that way. We apologize for those of you who are having trouble with the local cable broadcast. All right, and we now move to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and approved by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered under the last item of new business. Do you have any commissioners who'd like to pull any? Yes, Commissioner Haig.
Echo.
Okay, Commissioner Haig, Echo. Anyone else on this side of the room? All right, so we only have a poll for Echo. Could we have a
I'll
motion,
make a
please?
motion. If you like, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written with the exception of item E.
I'll second.
All right, motion to approve everything except item E. Any comment on the motion? Do any members of the community have any comment or wish to pull any items? None? Roll call vote, Ms. Bingham.
Commissioner Emmerine,
Yes.
Commissioner Haig,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Yes, and yes. Sorry. All right,
I
so
thought once you became mayor again that it would solve this problem.
it did not. Commissioner Haig, would you like to address item E now?
Yes, thank you. It's just for one point, and that's our former mayor, Elaine McLean, liked to always pull this item when there was a payment to the 48th District Court, just to highlight the payments to the court. And that's the only reason I pulled it. There's no dispute about any of the numbers, just to kind of continue that tradition of making sure everyone knows when we pay the courts for the services we receive. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve item E as written.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any comment on the motion? Roll call vote, Ms. Bingham.
Commissioner Anthony Long,
Yes.
Mayor Therese Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Haig.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. City Manager's Report, we have none this meeting, but there will be one at the next meeting. Unfinished business, we have none. We now move to new business. The first item of new business is a public hearing of necessity for the Cape Seal Special Assessment District for the 2025 Cape Seal Program. I am disclosing that my residence falls within that district, that area. Assessment district, so I will be recusing myself from the discussion and the vote of this item and turning over the meeting to temporary Mayor Pro Tem Schaefer.
Wonderful. Okay, we will now open the public hearing at 7:57 PM, and I believe Ms. Coda has a presentation for us.
Yes, good evening again. So I got a quick presentation to go over the 2025 Cape Seal Program for the hearing of necessity for a special assessment district. So a quick overview of the project itself, it's Cape Seal and existing unimproved roads. These streets are most located in the northeast corner of the city, Yorkshire, Dorchester, Buckingham, Edinburgh, Yosemite, Yankee, and then we've got two kind of outliers, which is Ann Street from Frank to the dead end and North Lawn from South Lawn to Shipman. The Special Assessment District for the Cape Seal will defray the costs incurred by the city for the construction of the Cape Seal itself. So here's a quick overmap of the parcels that are located or within the special assessment district. Just a little bit of background, this is Maple Road, right along this area here, and Adams is located right here, and then Southfield Road's over in this direction, and then Lincoln's right in this location here. And so previously, these Cape Seals were in the right around in between either 2008 or 2010 timeframe that these previous streets had Cape Seal treatment done on them. As with this, for maintenance and unimproved roads, some historical information, the first special assessment district for Cape Sealing was actually for dust proofing. So it was an existing gravel road, and to be able to dust proof it was to install a Cape Seal treatment on top of it. That was back in 1948. And with city's policy for residential properties, for the short side would be 85% of the cost would be assessed to residential properties. If it's a long side, which is usually a side yard, for a corner property, 25% gets assessed to the property owner. And for the properties, they also have a percent different. On this project, there's a few commercial properties that are located on Ann Street itself. And so for project cost, the overall project cost for the project is a little bit over $500,000 at $504,564.95. The total footage along the project was 14,739.84 feet. And then the accessible footages from the slide previously beforehand was 10,463.6 feet. And so with this Cape Seal program, there's two methods that are occurring with this. Method one is what we do spot patch replacement and a double chip seal and a slurry. And with that, the streets that are receiving that is Enderboro, Buckingham, and Yosemite. And that cost per foot is estimated to be $23.47 for the assessment cost. The second method is pulverizing double chip seal and a slurry for that. And those streets are Ann, Dorchester, North Lawn, Yankee, Yorkshire, and Yosemite. And the cost assessed per foot is $42.35. Where you're seeing the difference of it at is, I've got a few pictures in the next couple of slides upcoming, is method two is when you're starting to see the chip seal layer is gone, you're starting to see gravel on the edge of the roadway. Or also what you're seeing is multiple layers of Cape Seals where the center line is extremely higher than the other side. So with that, you have to do the pulverization with it to make sure that the new Cape Seal adheres to it well. And so a little bit zoom in for it. So these are properties located on Ann Street and Buckingham, Dorchester and Enderboro, North Lawn and Yankee, Yorkshire, and then Yosemite. And then here's some existing conditions. So here's on Ann Street from Frank to the dead end. This is the existing condition on this roadway. Next up is Buckingham, Dorchester, Enderboro, North Lawn, Yankee, and Yorkshire, and Yosemite. So with that, the engineering department recommends that the City Commission declare a necessity and approve the special assessment district for the 2025 Cape Seal program for Cape Seal treatment. And should the City Commission approve that tonight, a public hearing of confirmation of the role will be held on the next City Commission meeting, which is Monday, January 27th, 2025. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, at this point, if there is anybody in the public who would like to make a comment or ask a question of city staff on this matter, you are welcome to come to the podium, state your name and address, and we'd be happy to hear from you. Ideally, you limit your comment to 3 minutes, but I think that's reasonable.
Hello, Commission. I'm Tony Vitale. I'm at 2168 Yorkshire and 2140 Yorkshire. I've been a resident of Birmingham for the last 37 years, 34 years at this address. And I understand these improvements need to be done, but we really need to be assured that it's done with quality. I know the last time it was done in 2010, And when they first did it, we did the sewers, and they put the underlayment down. We thought it was just the prep of it, and that was the final product. It was terrible. There was bumps and dips. Today, we have, on the easternmost portion of Yorkshire by Coolidge, there's groundwater seeping into the road. There's been like that since 2010, that there's constantly patches on top of it. So there's something that needs to be done at the end of Yorkshire by Coolidge. There's constantly bumps there. There's weeds growing in the cracks. I'm just saying that the quality of what was done was subpar. And we just want to make sure that the job is done right and well. It just seems like another Band-Aid with this chip seal and slurry. The north and south streets are concrete. We don't know why we don't have concrete streets on our east and west roads instead of just the north and south. And they've just been neglected since the sewers were put in. They killed off all of our trees, the canopies. Probably 25% of our trees died because of the sewers that were put in. And I just feel like, and I think a number of our neighbors are here too, that the residents should not be responsible for 85% of this. The prior coding was substandard and was not even sustained. So I don't feel like that this cost is justified, and I don't ever recall having an assessment for road improvements, and that's typically what our costs for our taxpayer money goes for. So I'm just hoping that the commission revisits this policy, how the costs are being paid for this project, and puts our taxpayer money to more effective use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just as a reminder, there'll be no deliberation from the commission during commentary. Once we close the public hearing, the commission will then deliberate on any comments and going forward. Does anybody else in the room wish to come forward?
Yes, good evening. My name's Glenn Couch. I am the Regional Vice President at Uniprop. We own the commercial properties on 280 Dane Street. And one of the questions I had was the assessment and how it was determined. I wanted to look at that map again you showed real quick for Ann Street. Yes, at the end of Ann Street, there's the 280 Dane Street, and there's another parcel adjacent to it. If I'm not reading this correctly, please let me know. But it shows 280 Dane Street, and then it shows another one, which is Sidwell parcel number, which is ending in 5040. And then there's one that's 5021. It appears to be associated with 280 Dane Street. I'm not sure that's entirely correct. At this time, it's a parking lot. That parcel there is a parking lot that is owned and controlled. I think it's by Holland Hunter. So I'm not sure how we're getting at that assessment. Am I reading that correctly?
It's okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, please.
No problem.
Sorry.
So with that, any special assessment goes with the Sidwell number of a property, which is through Oakland County, the Sidwell number,
Okay.
not necessarily an address of the property. The special assessment rolls with the Sidwell number.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess, is there someone I can talk to later then to find out about this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room to speak on this matter? Anybody online? I don't think so. Okay. Then we will close the public hearing at 8:07 p.m., and I will bring it back here. If anybody has any comments on this, yes.
I'd like to ask Melissa a question.
Please do.
I think 2 years ago, we had the slurry done in the east end of Torrey, and some of the streets were not very well done. And I'm proud to say that the contractor came back and redid them. What kind of assurances can you give us that when you let a bid, that it's to a reputable contractor that's going to do the specificated job?
So any project that goes out for bids at the city is publicly bid. So we receive bids from contractors. Once we receive bids, we do check references of contractors. If they haven't done work here previously at the city, to see how they were in other communities, other agencies, et cetera, during that time frame. And then if there is discussions with that, with part of the recommendation, we recommend who we believe is the low qualified bidder to be able to do the job. And as part of going out for public bids, we have certain specifications of material, temperature, et cetera, that's included in the bid documents.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Commissioner Long?
So it's interesting that when we do Cape Seal,
We should speak closer to that.
when we do Cape Seal, we have residents who want us to do cement. And when we do cement and they look at the cost, they want us to do Cape Seal. And I've lived in the city for, I don't know, 25, 30 years, whatever. And so I've been through this process. I actually was in the same position that the gentleman who first spoke back when I lived on Cummings. And I came in and I spoke, and Stuart Sherman was on the commission. I wasn't at that point, obviously. And I said, why are we doing Cape Seal on this road? If the road moves, if people cut through from Woodward down Smith and on, to cut through to 14 Mile, there's potholes in the side of the road. And he said, he's like, if you want to get your residents behind it, you can do a petition and get 51% to approve it and bring it before the commission and have your roadway. It might not be put on that year, or it just depends. But it would. But if you get 51% of your residents to agree that they don't want Cape Seal and they want cement, then by all means, I went and collected more than 51%. I think I got like 80%. And then the people who didn't want it came back after the project was done and said, thank God you did this. It's amazing. It's great. And we got curbs and we got cement, and it's still there today. And that was probably 10 years ago. Obviously, I think we need to do, we're behind on doing these roads. And I think the pictures, nobody's arguing that these roads need to be done. So I get what people are saying. First of all, it's expensive. We did Arlington and Shirley, and some of those are bigger homes, much bigger lot than I live in, and so it can get expensive. It can be 20 grand or 25 grand if we do a cement roadway, and if we do Cape Seal, some of the roadways that we've done are good, and I live over in the Torrey area, so does Commissioner Haig, and I agree with Commissioner Host. It was not great, and I'm glad that they came back and at least did Sheffield. So it's a balancing act, but what we're trying to do is to redo our roads. The roads, the pictures that you just saw, they need to be done. And so there's no real answer here. And what we need is, and what I appreciate is the feedback from the community, the people who live on these streets, as to what they want. I didn't get on the commission to jam Cape Seal down your throat if you want cement or vice versa. And so if you, there's two processes. Since that time frame when I did Cummings, the city decided, look, some of this pits neighbor against neighbor, and some people, they don't like when you come and ask them to sign a petition to do cement. So the city commission, and I was not on the commission then, but the thought process was, we're going to do an evaluation of all the roads and a lot of different criteria, and that's been talked about and it's available. And we're going to suggest 2 or 3 roads every year until we can get, I think, 26 miles of road. Maybe now we're 23, maybe, with the projects we did this year. But the bottom line is that we have to do this, and the city is going to continue to try and suggest roadways, but if you want to do the petition part, that's a still live and well process that can be done. And if anybody has any questions, by all means. But if that's something that you'd like to do, then get with your neighbors and then bring it before us.
Can I ask a
If you have a question, please, I'm going to hear from the other commissioners, and if you have a question, you're welcome to come to the microphone and ask. We'd be happy to hear it. Yes?
So I think it was Mr. Vitale, if I hopefully got your name right. So just to maybe give you a little bit more clarification on what my colleague just explained. Background-wise, the Cape Seal, the unimproved streets, I live on one as well, by the way. We pay for these unimproved street improvements sort of out of our pocket, so to speak. I'm not going to get into the whys, wherefores, or the history of why this is the way it is, because that's long and complex. But that's how it works. When you go for an improved street, as my colleague just discussed, there is a one-time hit, and it's not a factor of 10 for the cost of your Cape Seal. It's between 15 and 20 times the cost. And it's a very large lump sum. And that's what is a stumbling block for many people, is literally writing a check that big. What it does do is then, to your point of putting it back into the taxpayers' use of funds, then that's the last time you pay for that road improvement. It's built into your taxes after that. But you have that initial financial hurdle. So my colleague explained the process quite succinctly. If you do want to go down that pathway, you do need to understand the cost picture as well, and everybody has to be clear about that, because it is not an inconsequential number in some cases. The longer your lot, or if you've got two sides, it's multiple tens of thousands. So there are two different pathways. Choose the one that works the best for you. And I just wanted to give you that as sort of clarification, additional clarification, if it helps with your thought process and understanding a little bit. Welcome.
And one other comment, if I may. The process of going through to do that, you can talk to the city clerk about, or I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. I did it myself. But the benefit of having a cement roadway is that it's engineered. They certainly try to engineer, in other words, have a crown on the road. Thank you, so that you have better, runoff and what have you. But a lot of these roadways don't have curbs, or a lot of them, And the problem with doing Cape Seal is it kind of ends, and there's no curb. And some of them have curbs, but some of them don't. It kind of ends, and over a period of time, when it hits dirt and what have you, and you have people pulling out the side of the road, or a delivery truck or a FedEx truck, it's going to make a pothole, and those potholes, fill with water, and it degrades the road. So it is definitely better to do cement and curbs, in my humble opinion, but that's easy for me to say. I will tell you that I've been through this process. I lived on South Lawn, paid for a roadway, got assessed. I lived on Cummings, paid for a roadway, got assessed. I'm on a road right now, and I live on Benneville. Hopefully that's not coming up soon. It'll be a trifecta in 30 years. But the bottom line is that I live here. I walk the walk. We all live here. We talk the talk. We walk the walk. We pay just like everybody else. And it has been that way for many, many, many years, 30, 40 years, the way they do roads. And we all benefit from using everybody's roads, and hopefully we don't benefit by using people's roads as a cut through, but that's just kind of how it works. So I just wanted you to understand that we get it, because we live here too, and we pay, and I know it's expensive, and that's why the Cape Seal is in the realm of things, 20%, 15%, the 15, 20 times less expensive is what I'm trying to say than doing a full cement roadway and curbs and et cetera. Thanks.
Did you still have a question?
Sure. I don't think it matters, but.
It matters.
So I'm Tony's neighbor. I'm at 2192 Yorkshire. My name is Angela Gunther. How do you come up with the 8515? Is it just because it's happened for 50 years? I mean, why are we paying so much? I see all these houses being renovated and trucks hit. My curb is cracked now because trucks hit my curb. It's just frustrating that we're going to have to pay for this. And I don't understand why our road is not paid for, and cement, once you do, you never have to pay again. but it's so expensive, and who makes the decision of 8515?
Right.
So
Okay,
it's just frustrating for me that all of a sudden I'm going to get this assessment, and the roads look like crap. And why don't you assess all the houses that are being built that have all the trucks that are coming down and probably putting more wear and tear on the roads? So,
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Sure.
My name is Chris Cuter, 2474 Yorkshire. So, on the Cape Seal, as you had mentioned, yours failed or something after 2 years. Is perhaps part of the problem is the specifications? I mean, I live on the same street, and it is really ridiculous at the quality. And, you know, maybe something needs to be changed about the specifications. The city won't let us do certain things. I wanted to pave in front of my house because things were so bad. I just wanted to pay for it. I'll take care of it. They turned me down, so you know, it's all got to be uniform and everything. That's fine. But these specifications that Tony was talking about, obviously something is woefully, you know, they're underestimating the wear and tear on this. I mean, is that?
Okay.
I mean, in 2 years, you know, in that case, it was nice that they came back and fixed it, but that's a non-starter. What warranties do they have from these contractors? And obviously, they have to follow our specifications. They redid our street in 2010, so they put in new sewers and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I had to convince the guys, you know, to redo in front of my house a little bit because, you know, it was just so shoddy. They were just putting it right up against the concrete curbing, and they weren't excavating enough. Somebody needs to be accountable, both on the city side from an inspection point of view and in the original specifications. So that's something that clearly is falling short.
Okay. Melissa, did you want to comment briefly
Yes.
on?
So a Cape Seal treatment, the lifespan of it is only 7 to 10 years. It's a small slurry that gets placed on top of it, and it's placed on a gravel roadway. As Commissioner mentioned, it's not an engineer base, it's a gravel roadway. So a gravel roadway will move and shift over time because it's not compacted aggregate stone that gets placed with a brand new road. So when the gravel shifts and moves, that can potentially create low spots or areas that hold water over time frame, hence why the city cannot guarantee drainage on unimproved roads. We might put the Cape Seal treatment on this year, and then something shifts in one location because the gravel is not stable underneath, and then all of a sudden we have a low spot along the edge of the curb because it's a gravel road. The Cape Seal treatment is only there to essentially protect from rutting, dust control, etc. It's not an engineered asphalt pavement. It's a slurry treatment that gets placed on a gravel roadway, and the gravel roadway does move and shift over time, winter conditions, etc. type of a deal.
Any other comments from the commission? Yes.
I just want to remind everybody, we were supposed to have a workshop on this very issue in December, and I believe it was thwarted by, RFPs or something. When are we having this workshop?
I don't think it was thwarted necessarily. I think what happened was we had a vacancy on the commission that we needed to fill within 30 days by charter. And that's why we had a workshop on filling the city commission vacancy. We don't have a workshop in January because of the long-range planning session. We will be having one coming up in February. We'll be giving you a list of the upcoming commission topics. This is at the top of the list.
Okay. Yes.
And if I can say one thing, as part of the bidding process, the contractor does have a 1-year maintenance guarantee. That's part of the document itself. So with that, we go afterwards, approximately 9 months after final pay estimate has been completed, to check the roadway to see if there's any maintenance any issues with the Cape Seal, et cetera, that would be covered under the 1-year maintenance guarantee.
Okay, and I'll just make one comment. I won't reiterate anything that my colleagues have said before, but for those of you who haven't paid attention along the way for all the various reasons you might not have, the city has 26 miles of unimproved roads. The roads that you live on are among those 26 miles. And like my colleagues have mentioned, we have taken on the initiative to work to improve these roads, but as Melissa said, the roads you live on are not engineered. They were originally, or OG as some people would say, dirt roads. And what you have on top of them is just enough for you to be able to drive your car, and after 10 years, maybe not very easily drive your car. And so we are working as a commission to identify the roads that we believe need to be improved from an infrastructure standpoint, starting with water and sewer line replacements, where the fire department tells us they don't have enough water pressure in the road and the waterways underneath to put out a fire in someone's home, which I think we can all sympathize with what we're seeing on the west coast of our country. And so we are here to make decisions for the health, the safety, and welfare of the community, which is what we did on Arlington and Shirley most recently. And those roads were completely re-engineered from the ground literally up, and those residents were assessed sometimes tens of thousands of dollars for that improvement. So like they said, if that's something you want to pursue and you want an engineered road, that remains available to you ahead of the schedule that the city has put forth. This is all published. You can see it online. There's an ad hoc unimproved streets committee that studied this for 2.5 years, and we continue to move forward so that we can try and make all the roads in Birmingham engineered. But that is costs money for both the taxpayers and the city, and so we are working to do that in a manageable fashion from a fiscal responsibility perspective, and also we need to have the manpower and the weather to cooperate for us to be able to do it. So this is our sort of blessing on these roads to say we're a little overdue in doing them, and to give you guys a road that hopefully in the short term will make it easier for you to drive, make it easier for you to clear, make it more aesthetically pleasing to some extent. And so I think that's what's before us at the moment. And there will come a time where your street will come in front of us for an improved road. And I think you'll be here with lots of different questions at that time, as we've seen from your resident colleagues that have come before us on other streets. So with that, if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll make one other comment.
Yeah.
Whether, if your street's being done, I've been through this long enough to know now that the people that come forward that say, I want Cape Seal, are the people that are going to be moving or retiring or moving out of the city in 10 years. They want the cheapest option. And the people who are going to be here, like I have been here for 20, 25 years, and they're looking at their road, they want an improved road, because they're going to pay for it but get the benefit from it. The people don't want to, and I get this. I'm saying the obvious, but I'm just pointing it out. The people who want to pay for the improved road are the people that are going to enjoy it for the next 20 years or 25 years. The people who want the Cape Seal are people who are like, look, I don't want to pay for the person I'm going to sell my house to enjoy that road, so I'd rather do the other one. And so if you take a road of 50 people, everybody's got kind of their own view of what they want, and we're trying to give people to give the community what they want, but also what they need, which is a road that doesn't look like it's cratered and doesn't have standing water and doesn't have water issues and what have you. So there's no right answer here. I encourage the public to come forward and give us their thoughts. We are trying to do what's best for each particular roadway. We've done, if you look over the meetings for the last couple years, one group of people didn't want sidewalks, and our plan is to put sidewalks in, and we didn't do sidewalks on one. Another one didn't want an improved roadway. The majority of the people wanted Cape Seal. So please come and tell us what your particular view is, and we work to try and deliver that within the confines of, we're never going to make everybody happy. It's just, you got 50 people with 50 different views and 50 different stories. And I'm one of those people as well. So.
Can I ask one more question, please? So when the Cape sealing process.
Please come to the microphone so we can hear you.
So the Cape sealing process, I saw in there was a pulverization. Does that mean that the road's going to be smoothed out, or are you just going to go up and down with the bumps? Because that's kind of what it's been like. And, again, when it first was done in 2010, that first layer went down and we're like, okay, we're waiting for the final layer. And that was the layer. It was up and down and bumpy. And it was like, what? What did we just get? So with this process, is it going to be flat? Or are we just going to seal and go over the bumps and craters and holes?
So with that, the pulverization essentially, non-engineering terms, grinds up the existing material out there and plus the gravel roadway itself. And the contractor will smooth that out. So that will help what some of the conditions are out there. As I mentioned previously, we can't guarantee drainage just because it's a gravel roadway, that something might move or shift after the Cape Seal treatment gets done. But with the pulverization, they do grind it up and essentially blend it out itself on those
All right,
roads.
thank you. And is there going to be a study to see what's happening on the eastern side of Yorkshire by Coolidge, where the water keeps coming up and they just keep patching it and patching it? Is that part of this process?
No, but I can follow up with the Department of Public Services also to see what's over there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. Do you need me to read the whole thing, or can I make the motion as written?
You can make the motion and refer to the page numbers either in the agenda packet or section 8A.
Are they both the same if I do the agenda packet?
They are. Yes.
They are, okay. I'd like to make a motion to move the agenda item. It's page 3, right?
8A, page 3 is the suggested action start.
Yeah. 8A, page 3.
Okay, we're in different spots. I was doing the agenda. Hold on one second. Let me get to where. Can I just see a second?
Yeah, take it.
I'd like to make a motion, make the suggested motion for this item that begins on, it's in 8A and begins on page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I think the rest is just maps, yes. Is that?
Which includes the resolution and also includes the detailed Sidwell numbers, street addresses, and Cape Seal assessments.
Yes. Is that good, or do you want me to read?
No, you're good, but let's
Okay.
make sure you have that level of detail.
Okay.
Is that, are we good? Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Beatrice Long is recused. Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, and there will be a hearing of confirmation on January 27th, which is our next regular city commission meeting. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate your comments. We invite Mayor Long back. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, Mayor Pro Tem Temporary Schaefer. All right, we now move to new business item B, which is, let me get to that page.
Here.
Resolution to approve.
Resolution to approve the Maple Road and Eaton Street intersection road safety audit.
Still up here.
Thank you. Ms. Coda.
It is. Okay, so So a little bit of history about this. Back in beginning of 2024, the city received some information from SimCog about a grant to be able to apply for, which is called a road safety audit. Essentially what a road safety audit does, it brings a independent multidisciplinary team that conducts a formal safety performance and examination of either a intersection itself or a segment of roadway. With that, the engineering department, along with other city departments, elected the intersection of Eaton and Maple to apply for a road safety audit grant to be able to have it get reviewed. We got that grant, and that was approved by City Commission on June 24th, 2024. So with that, what ends up happening, it's an 8-step process and that produces a final report. And so with that, I'll go to the report itself. So this is kind of the step process, the 8-step process of a road safety audit itself. Identifying the project, that was kind of a coordination with SimCog since we got a grant to cover 80% of the cost of this location here. With that selected road safety audit team, since SimCog was providing the grant for it, they selected a road safety audit team with multidisciplinary knowledge of the area, which also include pedestrian, traffic, and bicyclist itself. And so with that, we conducted a startup meeting towards the end of August of 2024. And with that, essentially, this blue part of conduct a startup meeting, they perform field reviews, conduct and prepare a report, and then present the findings to the project. That actually happened in a 4-day period itself. So with that, the road safety audit team came in on a Monday. We had a kickoff meeting, and then they were in town Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then presented it to city departments on that Friday. And so with that, they were able to go during different time frames, during peak hours, and also too, they were able to go during nighttime. So this was end of August, around 9 or 10 o'clock, to see what this intersection looked like with lighting conditions, et cetera, at nighttime with that. And so the way it works is that we are now at prepare a formal response and incorporate the findings. That is what's called. This is what the final report is. And so with that, just a high level of some of the items that the road safety audit team has identified as areas of concerns that could have improvement to it. And with that, we can either incorporate it with our upcoming Maple Road project. We're doing concrete slab replacements on the westerly part of Eaton intersection to the city limits of either by Whole Foods or on the north side Coolidge Highway. That's going to occur this year. Or when the South Eaton project comes forward in 2026, incorporate it in that project. Or there's also some things in here, some recommendations that can be done outside of those two projects. Some of it could be its own traffic signal project, or something smaller where we can get 3 quotes for it type of a deal, included in the budget, and go ahead where it's not involved in either the Maple Road project or the South Eaton project itself. And so this report kind of shows why also too of why we selected this location itself. As the road safety audit team did tell us, this was quite an interesting one for them, just because of the historical of the railroad bridge, the connectivity of it, and then also to for the city of Birmingham with the city limits. As discussed as part of an internal meeting, if something happens here at this bridge, the fire department cannot get easily to the east side of the city for any areas northeast of here type of a deal. So with that, it was an interesting standpoint. Also too, the city does not own the railroad tracks and the bridge, the railroad company does. So with that, it sometimes essentially limits what the city could do. We can do stuff that incorporates with the railroad bridge or talk and discuss it with them, but since we don't own it, it makes some things a little bit difficult. And then also to just the intersection layout of it, of where pedestrians trying to get across the intersections, there's different locations to be able to do that. And also to try to incorporate, you've got bike lanes on further North Eaton. On South Eaton, we're looking at to extend the bike lanes from 14 Mile Road up to this intersection. And so with that, how does bicyclists traverse this intersection in a safe manner to go forward once the South Eaton project occurs. And so with that, there's information about the data and everything else. But probably the biggest thing of this is how, let me zoom out real fast. So they essentially create a grade for what could be probability at this intersection with itself. So it includes the crash frequency. So as you can see, if it's rare, occasional, or frequent, depending on if it's low, medium, or high during that time frame. And then also to the severity also is included in it. So on the lower side or negligible is if there's property damage or a minor injury. So essentially something that's at low volume speeds, if someone's turning, et cetera, that or property damage is low rating for it. And then obviously it goes up higher if it includes, a high one is involved, high speeds or heavy vehicles, or if it's a pedestrian or a bicyclist involved. And so with that, using this of the frequency and the severity, it's the crash concern assessment. And so with that, if it's a high frequency and could be a high severity, that essentially gets an F. So that means something that you want to be able to improve on itself as part of the upcoming projects, et cetera, type of a deal. And so some of the items that they did find in here there was, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, no dedicated bicycle facility connecting through the intersection itself. Some obstacles within the bicycle facilities. One is an existing light pole if a bicyclist is going down on the sidewalk at the South Eaton, kind of the easterly corner over there. Obstacles for pedestrians throughout the intersection. Motorist turning behaviors and ADA compliance. For inclement weather, what they did find is that there were significant eastbound rear end crashes during the wintertime and during wet conditions. So within the report itself, it does show higher frequencies of during January, February, and March of eastbound rear end crashes. And we think part of that is because you're starting to go downhill from Adams towards this intersection itself, so you're going downhill, so if there's icy conditions, wet, et cetera, type of a deal that you might not be able to stop in time, and hence the rear ends crashes that occur. Traffic signals, they did notice that motorists were disobeying the prohibited traffic movements, and then also too, they did notice that one of the intersections, there's what we call kind of I wouldn't say outdated, but an older diagonal span signal that's not used anymore. So when you upgrade the signals, you use a different type of a span to go across the intersection itself. They did mention, they also noticed some faded pavement markings. They did notice motorists obeying the prohibited turning movements, going near Whole Foods intersection itself. They also did notice that there's insufficient warning for trucks heading from eastbound Maple, so from Coolidge coming in, that essentially your vehicle might be too tall, and then you potentially hit the bridge itself. And then also too, they did mention, since they were able to review at the nighttime, some of the intersections lighting, there was one non-working light fixture. They did mention that in general, there is no lighting underneath the bridge itself where a pedestrian is walking at. And then also to the lack of lighting in few locations of the pedestrian crossings at the intersections of either east or west of the railroad. And so with that, some of the recommendations that are provided in this report is there's quite a few of them, and they provide a little bit more detail in the report itself. And a quick summary of them is, sorry, I went past it. the safety concerns itself and treatment options of it. They did notice a few of the locations where either was either no existing crosswalks were there for pavement marking stripings, or they were faded itself. And part of that, we are incorporating that in our upcoming Maple Road project to be able to redo the pavement markings here out in this area. And then they did notice some of the locations where you've got some of the concrete that's falling in between here, and then some of the concrete's deteriorating near the catch basins that's near a sidewalk crossing. That will be completed as part of the upcoming Maple Road project in 2025. And so with this, they also did mention and indicated a broken ADA truncated dome that will actually is included in the Maple Road project itself. They did recommend some improvements here at the Whole Foods driveway crosswalk, just because of where the sidewalk's located at. We may want to look to essentially create a approach here and then a sidewalk going through there in that location of that intersection. One of the push buttons is in an improper location. So the Road Commission for Oakland County maintains our traffic signals and push buttons, so that's something we'll follow up with the Road Commission with. So with this, the bicycle treatments, as we mentioned before, there is no direct pathway for a bicyclist if they're on the roadway to be able to travel through the intersection itself. So they did give us a few, essentially, concepts to be able to review and be able to see how the feasibility works of it for it. So with that, the current width of the roadway on Maple between the two intersections does allow for 10.5-foot lanes, and then provide a 2-foot shyaway, and then you can have a 5-foot bike lane itself. So essentially the bridge abutment in the center is located right here. This doesn't show it, but the bridge abutment would be here and here in this location. So one of the things that they're recommending for the concept would be in where you would have it where they actually are inside of the roadway to be able to make the left-hand turns and be more protected in, at that intersection. The concept number 2 was to still have the 10.5-foot lanes, but instead move the bicyclist almost into the center part of the lane itself. So here would be the bridge abutment, and with that you would have people that are going to be turning left, either going northbound or southbound on Eaton, continue their path through Eaton, having the bike lane through there, the 2 distance shy away, and then if there's a through traffic that people are going east and westbound on Maple, they would essentially use the outside lane or the lane closest to the bridge abutments that are next to the pedestrian existing walkways itself. And with that, you're able to do essentially arrangements for some bike signals as part of the traffic signals. And here's some of the examples of this, that where you could have it where the bicyclist in this location for concept 2 would have its own lighted intersection for red light and green. And so on some of this too, they did mention some centerline parting techniques. What does that mean? Where you've got the existing roadway here and someone's turning. So what you do is you extend it out further, and so that way it causes the person to essentially make a more of a 90-degree turn versus almost a 45-degree angle where they're getting close to this location here. Also with this too is adding leading pedestrian intervals, or what we call as LLPIs. We currently actually have this in the downtown area where you can see it where if the traffic light's red, the pedestrians get 4 seconds to start crossing the intersection itself. So they did do a recommendation of potentially adding pedestrian intervals where that would give pedestrians a few more seconds to start moving, and so that way drivers would be more aware and be able to see them because they'll be moving before their light turns green itself if they're making a right or a left-hand turn. And then the other thing that they did provide as part of the rear ends that we did see on the eastbound Maple going down on grade itself is apply a high friction surface treatment. So with that, essentially, it shows it where you can kind of see it right here. It's a more friction itself, so that way you're able to break quicker, better, even if the weather has inclement into it. And we did ask the team about where this was previously installed at, and they did mention they think it's actually installed on I-75 on Big Beaver, where you've got the big curve where it's going eastbound or westbound on I-75 south of Big Beaver, and then you go north or essentially or coming from south over by Big Beaver exit. And that location right there, that's where they were like 95% positive that has a high friction thing just because of the way of the curvature of the road, etc. And then part of this too was the safety concerns, as we mentioned. Some of the motorists were not necessarily following some of the signage out there. So some of it was the no left-hand turn, and people were turning there, or vehicles pulling past the stop bar at the south intersection of Eaton. And so with that, as part of the report, they did recommend a few of the signage improvements out there, and then also updating some of the pavement markings out there to make sure that it's incorporated to current standards, and then also to make sure some of the signage so people can see the visibility better itself. And then this right here, they did mention, as I mentioned earlier, they proposed a box pan layout at the South Eaton intersection, and then proposed a no turn on red through this location right here, and some of the advanced warning signs for turning vehicles to yield to pedestrians. So that way people can see the pedestrians either coming this way, and then also in different locations in this intersection and also this intersection over here. And then, as I mentioned earlier, some of the safety concerns was pavement markings, which will be addressed as part of the Maple Road project upcoming itself. And let's see if there's anything else. And this was they mentioned too. So when you're coming off of this is a view if you're heading westbound on Maple. This is before Coolidge, so Coolidge intersections right here. With that, this is the only advanced signage that coming ahead, the bridge clearance is only 13 feet 2 inches. So part of the recommendation is providing signage west of Coolidge Highway, and so that way to be able to warn the truck drivers more, just because from this location here, the one side is provided per requirements, but essentially with where it's located at, and not be able to see physically the bridge at this location right here. Some recommendations of adding some additional signage in this location. And one of the other things they did mention is some of the lighting. So currently there is no lighting underneath the bridge itself. CNN Railroad does own the bridge, so any potential lighting that we want to incorporate, we would have to talk to them about it. But they did give us an option of, they provided one, I don't think it made it into the final report, but another clip view of it, where another community in the United States essentially installed the lighting, but it wasn't adhered to a railroad track itself. And so that way you weren't essentially doing any structural issues or anything else to the bridge abutment itself, but it did provide some additional lighting underneath the railroad track where pedestrians or vehicles are adhering through this intersection. And that is about, and then this right here, the recommendation options, they did mention here's some of the proposed treatments that I went over a little bit earlier. And with that, I'm available for any questions that City Commission may have.
Thank you, Melissa. That is an enormous amount of information. Do any commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Emmerine.
First of all, this is a very well done report. This is very impressive. I was excited to see all this stuff. First question I have is, I'm assuming this is a city road, not RCOC road. Is that an accurate?
Yep, this is the City of Birmingham roads.
Okay, and this report is done for recommendations for us to incorporate into our road projects or in some other fashion.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. On high friction pavement, is there anything about maintenance that DPS does to take care of, like snow plowing? Does that wreck the high friction pavement? Does that have to get replaced more frequently? I think it's a wonderful idea, but I don't know what happens with snow plowing.
Yeah, and we haven't researched that part yet. That was one of the recommendations, but if it's something that we do implement, we would want to talk with Department of Public Services and get feedback from another agency or two that have used it to see what does plowing operations potentially do on that surface.
And then the last question I had is, and forgive me, my computer stopped working here, but I don't see anything about stormwater improvements, and I don't know if they're needed or not. I just remember this intersection flooding like crazy. And I don't know if that's a thing that's going to be addressed as part of the Maple Road project, and I know that probably wasn't in their scope to review that here.
Yeah, so with this, they were mostly looking everything above surface, so anything from a driver, a pedestrian, or a bicyclist traversing the intersection itself, not anything really underground with the infrastructure of stormwater, sewer, water main, et cetera, type of a deal. What we did notice for the, let me see if I can find it, I'll go back up. I went too far. What we did notice during the design, so the existing asphalt that's underneath the bridge currently is going to get replaced with concrete with the upcoming Maple Road project. In this location over here, what we did notice is the existing low point does not line up with the existing catch basin out there. And so our consultants try to design it to that, but also to try to, you have to keep the existing clearance of the bridgeway itself. So with that, we are adding an additional catch basin in that location for that. And then also too, from any stormwater management itself, the city currently has a grant through Oakland County to study this area for stormwater. That will be completed end of February, so we'll have more information in that time frame in the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Other Commissioner Long.
I agree. Great report. Agree. We're limited on what we can do. This is a very challenging intersection. I can't see putting a bike lane through the middle there. I don't know how you get bicyclists in there, but I would not feel comfortable myself going through there. Maybe what you do is you do a bike lane that goes through the pedestrian walkway where the pedestrians are separated from traffic. I mean, there's
your old bridge.
Yeah, it's a lesser of two evils or three evils or 10 evils trying to figure that out. But putting a bike lane through the middle of there, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would do that. One suggestion I would do with regard to because I've lived here long enough to at least experience at least two trucks hitting the top of that. Once was a dump truck not too long ago. And what I would do is that sign that's on top of the bridge that tells you what I would illuminate it. I would make it flashing. So when a truck driver is driving down, they're reminded, because you put it a half mile back, I don't think they're going to see it. I don't think it's going to, or at least there's going to be a large percentage of truck drivers that don't see it. So I would suggest that. This place does flood, like, all the time. And I do like the people do cut from Eaton going westbound when they turn from Eaton onto Maple going west. They do cut that intersection. So bringing something out that isn't something that will last a day, something that will be a little bit more substantial, because it will only last a day if you do that, is a great idea. And I think. Oh, and also, I love the idea of, obviously the roadway has to sink down to get underneath the bridge, so you're going to have that on Maple. I do like the idea of that, of the pavement, some type of non-skid pavement or what have you, because obviously, when it's icy out and then you got a hill, you're going to have issues stopping at a stoplight there. So I like that. I think we should also, I like the restriping part of it. I like the illuminating it is a great idea. But the bike lane really troubles me to put it through the middle of it.
Commissioner Haig, did you have comments?
Lots.
I figured.
So, I agree. I'm very happy to see a report on this. It's nowhere near aggressive enough. It's weak sauce. I'm afraid. Even though it looks as though it's not, it really is. So my perspective, one of my kids goes to Pembroke, so between my wife and I, we go through this intersection twice every single day, north and south, each time at rush hour. It's a miserable junction. One of the accident stats was someone going right where we see on South Eaton, heading north. They drove into the back of my wife. That was last winter. That was fun. Not very fun with your kids in the car. So it's actually every single direction there is an issue with friction on that surface, because that was ice-related. Also, where we see the sign that says S. Eaton, cars just drive straight past that stop bar. The worst one I came across, the guy was actually nose out into Maple. And I'm sorry, Chief Gruey, but I drove behind him because there was about 60 feet from the back of his vehicle to the stop bar. I couldn't actually turn the junction. You are going to find every single entitled person, most of them don't live in Birmingham because they use it as a cut-through, looking at their phones as they're creeping down that hill because they don't hold the brakes very well either. That stop bar, I've said to... So I've been after this junction for like 10 years. Couple of Melissa's predecessors and I sat down about this one more than once. Any improvement is an improvement. The northbound traffic on South Eaton, I actually think that stop bar needs to come at least 100 feet further back. It's got to be pulled all the way up the hill, because all it does right now is encourage traffic to creep down to that pedestrian crossing, which they all do. I started counting one day, I stopped counting. I just gave up. It was like 1 in 3 cars. I have to admit, I failed to recognize the no turn on red on going southbound on North Eaton myself. I was looking at it today after I picked up my son and watched the line of traffic go through the red light. So a no turn on red would actually, I think, be beneficial on every single one of those. I don't think anybody should turn on red there because this junction is so miserable. I'm with my colleague here. You want to put a bike lane in the middle of that bridge, either it's not going to be used or we're going to have a pancake bike. It's not going to work out. So the more radical thought that I was thinking about while Melissa was presenting was we went down to 1 lane on Maple over on this side of Woodward. So make it 1 lane there as well. That's going to do an awful lot to calm the traffic down in this area. So instead of being 2+2, because we go to 2 lanes after we come out of downtown, make it 1 lane. It's going to control the traffic dramatically. And there are all sorts of complaints, and I was one of the ones that complained about, why are you taking Maple down to 1 lane over here? And now I watch it and look at it and think, actually, it was a pretty good idea. So I eat my own words there, and I think we could apply it here instead and have a much more measured response and control in this whole area, because that junction is nasty. And there is nothing good about it, and there's nothing that we can do to change it because of the position of the railroad bridge. We have zero control. So I would like to see much, much more done here. Extending that junction, yeah, those things will last 1 day like they did when we were putting them on South Eaton, because I remember there was actually a report of someone driving an F-150 used them for target practice down the whole road. The same day they were installed. I watched them being installed, picked up my kid, came back to pick him up later, they were all broken. Same day. It's going to happen there as well. So, love the concept, nowhere near aggressive enough, make it a lot harsher, and we can do something really, really safe here, because right now it's not.
Thank you, Commissioner Haig. Any further comments?
I just had one comment. So the intersection at North Eaton and Maple, well, I guess they're all at funny angles, but I guess the one at North Eaton and Maple. We've been talking about that intersection since I was on the multimodal board back in 2017. And I think Lara's in the room here. I think she might have been on the multimodal board with me when we discussed that. But there are lots of plans for, I know, redoing Eaton, which I think is getting pended to 2026. But if I recall, there are some changes that are potentially happening at that funny angle. And there was talk of a pedestrian island and all kinds of other things at that intersection, which I know is not part of this road safety audit. But I do think there were talks of changes at that intersection. So I just think there may be opportunities to improve at least one part of this. I agree this is exceedingly complicated area of town. I guess if the direction is to accept this audit, I don't there was some suggestion that maybe you didn't want to, or you wanted it better, or?
No, I think that the fact we had an audit, it's gone and highlighted
yeah.
where all the issues are. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the proposals are aggressive enough for the problems that this intersection presents.
Yeah, so I agree. Like any improvements to increase driver awareness, truck awareness, preventing rear-end crashes. I don't like to be a pessimist, but it's a very, very tricky part of town. But I think it's great that you had people out there, and there's a team of people who were looking at all the different angles and keeping pedestrians and bikers safe. So I'll look forward to how this comes forward to us when we look again at Eaton. But yeah, thank you for the time that everyone spent on it.
Thank you. Yes, we're delighted we got a grant for this, and this was, the city picked a great place to use this grant award. The suggested resolution in front of us is to make a motion adopting approval of the Maple Road and Eaton Street intersection road safety audit. I think perhaps we want to go beyond that and not only adopt it, but suggest that it be sent to the Multimodal Transportation Board for their review, to look at the various suggestions about signage, traffic lights, improvements that go beyond and complement instruction, because I think they are the board that can dig into this in more detail, such as, recommendations for bike lanes. I will note that we have tried to address lighting under the bridge before. When I was on the Parks and Recreation Board, we looked at improving that area. We looked at, DPS tried to get permission to put lighting under the bridge. The railroad company declined to let us touch it. We could hardly get permission to take the graffiti off of it, if I recall. So, and they control. But the idea that they had that perhaps a freestanding infrastructure underneath the bridge that could be lit is an interesting idea. So I think, thank you for the presentation. We're delighted that we had the audit. I think it should go to Multimodal Transportation Board so that they can study it and churn through and see what we can adopt in what fashion, independently of the construction projects and as part of the construction projects, so that it just doesn't sit. We have a responsibility to act on what we can control now that we've been made aware of these findings. And so if...
Maybe one minor adjustment there?
Yes.
Very minor. They did recommend a no turn on red sign on the southbound portion of North Eaton, the bit with the red arrow. It may be worth us just doing that anyway, because the red arrow is there. It's just, again, it wasn't clicking inside my head until I read it that, yeah, red arrow actually meant you're not supposed to turn. I think we could actually just say put a sign up there anyway.
Would that recommendation come from Multimodal? Yes, so we could ask them to do that first.
Could be expeditious.
Study that
And
first.
to your point, the same thing about the height issue ahead. Adding more signage.
We've got to go out into
quick
Troy
fix.
for that. That's so far out, we have to have that sign in Troy, though. That's the problem.
But as we get some closer in to say, hey, you might want to turn here if you exceed 13.2, those are the kind of easier things to fix that we
Can only turn on Eaton.
On Eaton.
That's the only place they can turn off. So they come past Coolidge. Then they're into a residential. There's no through traffic for trucks.
Right. So, but again, we can ask Multimodal to pick up those two items in particular sooner rather than later. So let's get a motion at the commission level and then ask if there's any public comment on the report.
I can make. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Maple Road and Eaton Street intersection and road safety audit with enthusiasm, and to direct the Multimodal Board to also receive a copy of this and to study it, and to consider the no turn on red and overhead bridge signage.
I'll second.
All right. Any comments on the motion, the commission? Any comments on the motion from the public? Anyone have any comments they'd like to make about the motion, about the report? All right. Any comments online? Please use the raise your hand function. I see none. So all in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, now we have two agenda items, C and D, that are related to 400 East Lincoln, also known as the Senior Recreation Center project. Item C is a resolution to direct staff to issue the RFP for construction management services. And item D is a resolution to submit a bond proposal for the May 6, 2025 ballot. I think these items are somewhat interrelated, and we could discuss them in either order. But because C is tied to D, D is tied to C. But as they are on the agenda, we have the RFP first. So I don't know if any commissioners have any comments on that. You want to proceed with the agenda the way it is, or?
I would recommend reversing the order because any discussion we have on timing is predicated on the bond by the way it's written in there. So
Okay.
if there is a choice made on the bond, decisions made in C are going to have to then potentially be revoked and go back to debate again.
Okay,
So I would reverse the order.
Ms. Ecker, you have a comment?
Yes, I just had something to say with regards to that point that you made. The only thing in the RFP that talks about the bond issue as a potential May vote, of course, we can easily change that language in the RFP to say a May or August or later vote so that we can take care of that issue so that they're not directly tied together, if that makes everybody feel better.
It's a cascade effect in a Gantt chart. So what you're doing is you're changing critical path. I would still do the bond first.
All right, so would you like to make a motion then to adjust the agenda?
I will do that. So motion to change the order of the agenda from 8C and 8D to become 8D and then 8C.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any comment on the motion? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, so we are going to discuss the resolution to submit a bond proposal in the amount not to exceed $32 million to the electorate at a special election May 6, 2025, to approve the ballot wording of the bond proposal and direct the city clerk to certify the language and send it to the Oakland County Clerk for submission for May 6th. And Ms. Ecker,
Yes.
you're going to start that?
Yes,
Thank you.
since we're switching the order, as you pointed out, these two are obviously all part of the same project. We're going to start off, Mr. Pat McGow is here from Miller Canfield. He's going to talk about, since we're switching the order now, about the bond issue and whether or not you are interested in pursuing a bond or a ballot vote bond proposal on May 6th. We do, if I could point out, just so everybody knows, this is a complicated process, obviously. So Pat McGow is here. We have Brian Deming here from our owner's representative from Kramer. We have Mr. Stock from, did I say your name wrong? Jim Stock? Okay, from Newman Smith, here to talk about any questions you have with regards to the architectural and engineering process as they go along and design it. And then we have representatives of the YMCA and Next. And we also have a representative here from Benzinski and Company, the bond company that has done all of the bond schedules that you see in here. So as we all know, this is a very complex process, and there's a lot of different things to consider. And to your point, Commissioner Haig, different things could push off timing. Right now, the way that we have it structured is we've hired the architectural and engineering firm in Newman Smith. They're proceeding with schematic design. Well, their first bit is programming, and actually I'll just pull out the schedule so I can refer to it. But basically, what you're going to see after a long time here of wondering how we're going to get this gray area defined into something that we can move forward with. You're going to see a lot of parts start to come and pieces start to fit together here in the next couple of weeks and months. So just to give you an overview at this point, and I'm sorry I got you up here and now I started to talk. But I'll give you a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of an overview on where we stand on the schedule that was previously approved by the commission and the ad hoc senior center committee that of course can change at any time with this body's approval. But what we're looking at right now is we've got Newman Smith working on a detailed program for the building. They're taking everything that we've done thus far. They've met with Next, they've met with the YMCA. They're happy to come up and answer any questions as we go through this. They're going to have a test fit, basically a final program for the building by the end of the month here. And they're going to be coming to the ad hoc committee and then to the city commission here to present it to you and say, look, we've had all this discussion, we've had all these discussions, we've refined it down. Here's what we think the actual program of the building is going to look like. You're going to have a chance to review that. At the same time, we have been off working, and I say we, I mean the management and administration of the city in conjunction with our owners' representatives, our attorneys, and the owners, managers, and attorneys of Next and the Y. We've been meeting with them to negotiate contracts and agreements to put in place for the operation of this building, which you know we've talked about in the past. That is 95% there. We envision that we will be coming forward to you at the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, with those agreements in place for you to look at. Now remember, we've met around the table with the management groups and the attorneys from all of these organizations, but just like those agreements have to come to you as a city commission to ultimately approve, they would also have to go to the WISE board, to Next's board, and to the other interlocal partners that we have. But as of last week, we are pretty much there on an agreement with Next in the city. We have one issue that we're resolving with the agreement with the Y in the city, and we also had a meeting with all of our other interlocal partners, and we got verbal consensus and buy-in with the proposal that we put forward with them, and that's Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and the Village of Franklin. And we will be coming to you with all of those agreements at the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. Now, not that you have to approve those agreements at that meeting, but I know this was something that you wanted to have at the same time that you're discussing this bond language. So tonight, we're here. I don't know that you're willing to proceed with the bond ballot language, but we want to start talking about it at least, because here you're going to see all of the pieces are going to start to fall into place, and you're going to have to digest it and process it and decide what the schedule is if you want to change it from what we have laid out. At this time, what we'd be looking at is on February 5th, the program that Newman Smith is putting together would go to the advisory committee. Then it would come to you on February 10th. So we've got tonight, we start this discussion about the bond, we start the discussion about the RFP, and hopefully issue the RFP for the construction manager, and I'll have all of the players here to speak to why we think it's important that we proceed with a construction manager at this point, moving forward, and how much it's going to cost, and of course, depending on whether you decide to schedule a bond vote for May or August or some other time, how much that's going to cost, and why we think we should proceed with a construction manager in any event at this stage. However, going back, we'll have the program and the test fit. Then we're talking about, at the next meeting, coming to you and with all of the contracts and hopefully more discussion on the bond, assuming you don't take action tonight, which quite frankly, I did not expect that the commission would be willing to take action to move forward on a bond vote tonight, but we would start the discussion. We would come back with all of the contracts. Then February 10th, what you're going to see that night is the program and the test fit, so that you'll see the actual final product of what we think the layout's going to be. In Newman Smith, feel free to jump in if I'm using any improper architectural terminology. We are also looking at doing the workshop on February 10th, which was planned to be on the unimproved streets. We've talked with Newman Smith, and we think that there would be some value in doing a visioning workshop at the City Commission on February 10th to bring in the City Commission, the Planning Board, who's going to be ultimately doing the site plan review, and the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, and have everybody come in and have Newman Smith come and present like a visual preference survey, so we can start talking about some of the things now that have come up. What is this building going to look like on the outside? How is it going to relate to the street? How is the parking going to lay out? That kind of thing. So we can at least have a visioning session, and then we would come back to the City Commission again in Okay, so after that, they would do the test fit, then they would go on their schematic design with the visioning process laid out so they understand the direction that the decision makers want them to go with design. Then they will get to work on the schematic design and they will come around very quickly, turn around and come back to the ad hoc senior center committee and then to the city commission with a schematic design program for this. So the whole point is that in the next couple of weeks / months, all of these pieces are going to start to fall into place. We'll see, in just like I said, in that order, the discussion of the bond, the agreements, the final program, the schematic design, the renderings, the visioning, what it's going to look like, and then the renderings ultimately in March to go to potentially a vote in May, should that be what you decide to do. Of course, this schedule that was previously approved by the commission did predicate on moving forward then and getting started and going through the process and starting construction at the end of the year / January of 26. If we push it back from a May vote to an August vote, we can do that. You can put it on whatever election you want to put it on. You can do that, but it would not allow us to make the goal of getting something fully constructed and having Next be able to move in by the time that the Birmingham Public Schools has told them they have to be out of their current space. So just kind of set that up as a precursor. We'll open up the discussion on the bond, and then I'm sure that there will be lots of comments and questions. And as I mentioned, we've got everybody here to answer your questions. We have our own finance department here as well with any questions that you might have on proposed millage rates, bonds, the term of the bond, when do we want to do it, and how does this all factor into the overall process. But for all the discussion that we've had over the last year and a half about getting this to come together, we're finally here. We're at the point where it's all going to start to fall into place. And you'll have decisions to make almost every single meeting going forward as to how we narrow this down and finalize this project.
Before Mr. McGow starts, any questions for Jana on? Okay. Please proceed. Thank you.
Great. Good evening. I'm Pat McGow. For those of you that don't know me, I am an attorney who works with the city on bond and finance projects and have worked on the last several bond issues. So for this agenda item, we're talking about the bond proposal and then the financial structure of the bond issues. So also here with me is my colleague, Emily Barr. And then Stephen Hayduck from Benzinski and Company is the financial advisor who prepared the schedules, the millage impacts for this, and his firm has worked on the last several bond issues as well. So there's a lot of information in the agenda packet. Jana just gave a great description of everything that is coming together for this project. So I'm going to kind of simplify it a little bit and just talk about the bond issue. Let's assume for a moment that the City Commission is ready to proceed with what was recommended by the ad hoc Senior Recreation Committee and the timetable at your last meeting. So basically, there is this project related to the building, and the city has decided that it wants to tear down the existing building and build a new senior recreation center. In order to do that, it's going to need approximately $32 million of funds to pay for that demolition and construction of a new building. And so the question is, how do we get that money in order to pay for it? I'll leave to the next folks to talk about the timing, the design, and those sorts of things. So when we talk about needing money for a construction project, as the city has done in the past, the city has very often gone to approve a bond issue. And one of the benefits of going to the voters to approve a bond issue is that submitting it to the voters and asking them to approve the financing for that amount gives the city the legal ability to levy a special debt millage in order to pay the bonds. So this is how you have done the various park projects. So you may recall that in 2021, the citizens voted to approve a bond proposal that was $11-something million and did the first bond issue in 2021, and then we did the second bond issue in 2024. So this is a similar process that we're looking at. The state law limits the timing on when you can submit a proposal to the voters. There's only 3 possible dates in each calendar year to have an election. And that's the May date, which is the first Tuesday in May, May 6th of this year, the August date, the first Tuesday, it's actually first Tuesday after the first Monday, and then the November date.
So those are the only three possible dates. Also, the state law says that in order to submit a question to an election, the city commission has to approve the ballot language and file it with the city clerk at least 12 weeks before the election date. So that's what the timing is here that's driving this month, is if you want to present this to the voters at a May election, the deadline is Tuesday, February 11th at 4:00 p.m. So we're really trying to have this come to you tonight for discussion and potentially, if you go this route, to approve the bond proposal language by the next meeting. Because even though you have a meeting on February 10th, if there's a snowstorm or you don't have a quorum, you're not going to hit that February 11th deadline. So if you want to put something on the ballot for the May election, the ballot language needs ideally to be approved by the commission no later than the meeting 2 weeks from today. So maybe if we could go to the back of the packet and look at what the proposed ballot language is. So when it's the last page on this item 8D. I think I'm going to start there, and then we can talk about the bond issue. So, again, state law has certain rules on how ballot language reads. And there's really only four blanks, I will say, that we need to fill in terms of the details. And a lot of the language is boilerplate. So this will be item 8D, the last, after the schedules.
Exhibit A.
Almost, yep. Exhibit A to the, there we go. Keep scrolling, 2 more pages. And there we go. So that right there is a draft of what the bond proposal could be. There are 4 details that need to be completed, as well as having the required language. So what the ballot proposal has to say, it has to include the maximum amount of the debt, which we have in here as $32 million. That's based upon the discussion in December and the City Commission's direction. The duration of the bond issue, or the maximum duration, which there is a blank here. And then where you have a little wiggle room is the sentences that come next, which is to describe briefly the purpose of the bond proposal, what the money is going to be used for. And then the last thing is that the bond proposal is required to have an estimate of the first year millage that will be levied and the average millage. So that's essentially what this is. Now, you know, we have a little bit of discretion on how you want to describe the project based upon the elements within it. But I will say that, you know, the bond proposals are supposed to be very neutral in tone, factual, not intended to lead voters to vote yes or no. So the idea is to convey in just a few short sentences what the purpose of the bond proposal will be. And so that is very similar to the proposal that was approved for the recreation project, with obviously the blanks and the details being different. So, you know, in order to do this, what we would first be looking for guidance from the commission is on the description of the project, as well as the other details related to the duration. Benzinski and Company has prepared several schedules with different durations at 15, 20, 25, and 30. That information is in your packet, and depending upon what duration you choose for the bond proposal, that would dictate what millage rates go in that last section in those blanks. And so what we were trying to do here is to convey briefly what this project is. And so we're describing it the same way it was described in the ad hoc committee reports, as a senior recreation center. And then we included a description of some of the elements. So the idea is that the bond issue would be used to pay for the acquisition, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a new senior recreation center for the city, including a swimming pool, meeting rooms, and recreational facilities, together with all related site improvements. Now, I know that you are in discussions with Next and the YMCA about them using a portion of the facilities, and there's going to be some types of leases and agreements. But at the end of the day, this is a City of Birmingham facility. So the city is going to own it. You may lease it to some of these other community groups, but you are going to own it. And this is a description of what is going to be included within that building. So this is how we've drafted it to try to give, in essence, what is expected to be included. We don't want to put anything in here that you don't think will be in the building, but we want to put enough details so that the voters have an idea of what it is. And I understand that a lot more of those details are going to be fleshed out as you go through the process with the architect, and then the arrangements with Next and YMCA over the next several weeks will dictate kind of how that space is being allocated. And then if we could scroll backwards to the prior exhibit that has the estimated debt service schedules. So when you do a bond issue, under state law, one of the questions is how long do we issue bonds for? So under state law, you're not allowed to borrow longer than the lesser of the useful life of the facility or 30 years. So for a building, buildings obviously have a longer useful life than 30 years. However, historically, the city has done 20-year bonds. 20-year bonds are kind of the standard benchmark duration in the municipal bond industry. You can go longer, 25, sometimes 30, but as you'll see from the estimated millage impacts, you know what, let's go to the memo. Sorry, Jana's memo on page 2. The bottom of page 2. Right there, stop, yeah. That talks about what the estimated millage impact is for the different durations. So a 15-year bond proposal has a higher millage rate because you're paying the debt off quicker, which requires more millage. 20 years is a little over $500,000 per year. 25 is a little less, and this 30 really isn't any better. You tend to have a lot more interest costs. So again, the recommendation from the city's finance department and management is to go with a 20-year bond issue. That's kind of a standard in the industry, and that would be roughly $500,000 a year. If you want to ask more questions about the structure and the estimates, Stephen Haydock will be available to answer those questions shortly. But this is basically done in order to build in a reasonable assumption for growth. The debt service has been structured to be roughly level around that 0.5, 0.52 level for the life of the bond issue. So that's really the details in the bond proposal that's for your consideration tonight. Now, in terms of the timing of the bond issuance, we really are the tail wagging the dog, because we really don't want to issue bonds. If approved by the voters, we would recommend waiting until the construction bids, the guaranteed maximum price, that process is done to know what the project is going to cost. Because at that point, you will have an idea, and we will know if the project needs to be downsized or if there's room to cover it, or we can downsize the bond issue if it comes in less. So by presenting this proposal to the voters at a May election, it doesn't require you to issue bonds in the amount of $32 million. It gives you the ability to do that, but we would recommend that you wait until we get the numbers for the project. Then we would finalize the sizing of the bond up to that $32 million amount. So the timing of the bond sale, if the voters approve it in May, would really be dictated by when you have the pricing on the cost of the project. And so under this current plan, assuming the timetable that Jana laid out, that would be the pricing being available sometime around December of 2025, which would allow us to structure a bond issue and sell it either late 2025 or early 26, and that would be issued in one series to pay for the construction of the project. Now, I mentioned earlier that when we did the park bond, we did that in 2 different bond issues. And the reason we did that is because when you do a bond issue, a tax-exempt bond issue, you're supposed to expect to spend all the money within 3 years. So the park project had a much longer time period, approximately 5 or 6 years. So we split that into 2. Because the current construction schedule is that this bond construction, the construction of the project is 12 to 15 months, that's why we're recommending that this be done as a single bond issue. Once we know the dollar amount, we issue the bonds in late 25 or early 26. The money's available for construction, and then the first levy on the tax bill would not show up until the first city taxes after the bond sale. So that would be the July 2026 bill. So even though we may go to the voters in May of 25, this will not show up on the taxes until after we sell bonds, and that would probably be the July 2026 tax bill. So that is essentially the structure of the bond proposal itself and the timing. So as you have your discussions, that's really what we're looking for from the commission, is guidance on any changes to that bond proposal language and then confirmation of what structure and time period you would like, and then we can fill in the blanks on the millage. So that's kind of the bond piece. Are there any questions about that process involving the ballot proposal, the bond timing, or other specific questions about the structure?
I have a question, and then I'll go to the other commissioners. So in the bond language, it says to acquire, construct, furnish, and equip a new senior recreation center for the city, including a swimming pool, meeting rooms, recreational facilities, together with related site improvements. Is it appropriate to incorporate some language that says facilities for dedicated senior programming? I mean, there's nothing in this that would let a voter know that this, although it'll be a lease arrangement, would be the new home for Next. There's nothing in there that says senior programming.
So if you want to do that, you can put something like that in there. I will say that if we put it in there, then that needs to be part of the project. And one thing that we did not do is we did not include anything in here about Next or the YMCA, because that arrangement may change. And so we didn't want that to be part of the ballot proposal, but you as a city commission have the ability to lease it to those entities. But we didn't want to make that a mandatory part of the bond proposal. So if you felt that it would be helpful and informative to include reference to senior programming, facilities for senior programming, we could work something like that into the description.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Host.
How come we're not calling this a community center? Because I don't give it a prayer otherwise.
So I took the name based upon what the name of the committee is.
I know, but you weren't using the word slash in between. You were saying senior recreation center. You know, I'm sorry, Pat. I think it ought to be called a community center. Otherwise, the community isn't going to like it.
I guess I would comment. I don't know the timing of which. I think the $32 million number is going to get a lot of just sticker shock, if you will, when someone sees that. So I know you had mentioned that, you don't have to take the bond issue for the full $32 million, but my concern is that that's what the voters see, and that's what sticks in their head. So even if we go back and we know what the bond issue actually is, maybe it's 25 million or 22 million, who knows? That's what's going to stick in the voters' heads, The $32 million building in Birmingham, I can just hear it, and I agree. My comrades, colleagues are the younger generation in Birmingham who have young or school-age children, and I would agree that if I read this, now I'm uber informed, but my colleagues are not, and so if I read this, I'd be seeing this as, so I'm approving a $32 million senior recreation center for $32 million, what's in it for me? And so we know what's planned, which is to house the YMCA, which is all about, seniors and kids and families. But I think the messaging that comes in front of this is going to have to be very, very clear and informed, and everyone's going to have to see it, because this is a big whopping, if you say we need, $5 million for parks, everyone's like, I love parks. It's an easy sell. This, I think this is a harder sell. So I think nothing that we do in this city is done quickly, from my observation, unless it's an emergency. And so I think we need to be very careful if we want this to be successful, which I think we all do, that we do this as slow as is possible and as fast as is possible, all in the same moment, so that we can make sure that the community is educated, that when they walk in to vote, whether it's in May or in August or in November, or whatever random month we could choose, that they look at this and they know exactly what they're reading about. Because I know people who walk into a precinct and say, well, what's on the ballot? And so those are my thoughts. I agree. While we know what the intention is, the average resident would not understand if it just read this way, and I don't think it would get adequate support. So,
City Manager Ecker.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Absolutely, you're 100% right. And that is why the schedule has it aligned so that we would have the final program and we would have the schematic design ahead of the vote. And if we hire a construction manager, we would also have the pretty good idea of the final number for construction of that schematic design before the vote on the bond. Okay? So we
Even if it's in May?
Even if it's in May, yes.
And-
We wouldn't have the GMP because we wouldn't have the final design, but we would have we already have a rough estimate of what we think it's going to cost. We will have a refined number as to what it's going to cost. To your point, is it going to be 25? Is it going to be 28? Is it going to be 30 million ahead of the bond vote in May?
And when do absentee ballots and early voting, when does that happen?
That happens 45 days prior to the election, and I talked to the city clerk about this afternoon, so Alex, feel free to weigh in. 45 calendar days ahead of time, so that would put us at roughly March 21st, which is right about the time that we are going to have, hopefully, everything pulled together. To your point, there may not necessarily be a 100% final design because it's still going to have to go through, once we go through schematic design, design development, construction plans, but we'll have a very good idea on the final program and what it's roughly going to look like. And we're going to talk about it every week or 2 weeks between here and then with all of these details and all of this information getting out there. And also, as you know, there's a survey out there right now, again, to recapture everybody's feedback on the actual programming of the building, just so you know. So that is going to be on everybody's mind in a lot of ways before them for the next several months and frankly, it will be all the way through the end of the year. But to your point, is that enough time? That's up to you as a commission to decide. We have it laid out so that we can have everything put together for that time frame. The other thing I wanted to point out quickly is, as a city, we can't go out and advocate for or against a particular bond proposal. Mary, you feel free to step in here. We lay it out factually speaking, and if there's a group that wants to go out and advocate in favor of or advocate or against a certain bond proposal, they can do that. The city cannot.
Sure.
So we can put out all of the factual information as to what the charge is, what we're trying to do, but we can't go out and sell it.
Sure, we can educate.
Inform. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And Pat can speak to this far greater than I, because bond language, bond issues are so complicated, and you need the expert. Sure. But I think what's really important to understand, and what's somewhat frustrating, is that the bond language has to be somewhat vanilla. Because if you plug in certain words and they don't come to fruition, you cannot use the money for it. So to put in language about next, or to put in language about...
No, I agree. But I think just now, and I know you just chose this based on like the name of the committee, so we haven't necessarily identified what the, in all capital letters, underlined title is, right? So I can recognize the Senior Recreation Center bond proposal, that line, so I agree, right? Vanilla. But I think the most vanilla is what the average person is going to read at the top. And someone with a 3-year-old at home, I see a senior recreation center, 32 million, my taxes are going up. No. So I just think we have to be clear to the community what they're getting before. And May seems early. March 21st feels like tomorrow. So anyway.
Commissioner Long.
I want this to work, and it seems very compressed to me. It is January 13th, and you're talking about having to get all this done by February 11th. And we don't know all. I know a lot because I sit on the ad hoc committee. I've been involved with this since, I don't know, when do we start? April, May? April. Every other Wednesday with some gaps. I know that that Next doesn't want to hear this, and I know that the Y doesn't want to hear this, but we need to do this right, because if we rush this, and the commission is, and the staff, and all the other vendors and everybody else are all educated, I don't see how we educate the community in the time frame that we have for a May vote. And if we do a May vote and it fails, we're dead in the water, folks. Like, all the work that we've done, the hundreds of hours that I put into it, the hundreds of hours that everybody done. We're, so would I like to see it done in May? Absolutely. Do I think that it is smart to do it in May? I don't, not given where we're at. And that's nothing, no knock on all the hard work that everybody's put in on it at all. I just think that we need to take a step back and say, are we going to go for May and know that it's not going to be, there's no way we're going to educate the community between now and a May vote properly.
Yeah.
I just don't think we are. An August vote? Absolutely. I think we can do that. I think we can educate. I think we can find two things. I think that is that 3 months that I don't want to burn? Absolutely. Is it 3 months that Next doesn't want to burn, or the YMCA doesn't want? Absolutely. I get it. But the alternative is that in May it's like, well, all this work we put into it is not going to end up. And then where is Next? Then where is the Y? Then where are we with this building? So from my point of view, to do this right and to do this smart is not to rush a bond vote that you put in front of the voters of this community and ask them to approve in a very, very tight, extremely tight schedule. I think it's going to be unlikely that it's going to pass under that type of scenario. I think that if we take the time and do it right and do an August bond vote, in my humble opinion, I think you stand the best chance to be able to educate, to be able to get everybody on board, to be able to have some other entities that may want to educate the public. That's kind of where I'm looking at it. And believe me, it's killing me to say this, because I would like it to go in May if I could wave a magic wand. But the rational part of me is kind of like, it's really rushing it. And that's kind of my view.
Commissioner Haig?
Thank you. So I'm going to go slightly down a different pathway to get back to where I actually want to go in the end. So the gentleman that put together the bond schedule of debt service, thank you for these tables. They are extremely helpful. Question for you, though, about the interest rates, because looking at the rates you've got in here, now I know muni bonds versus T-bonds, there's a spread because of the taxable status. But knowing that T-bonds are actually increasing in rates, how confident are you in the 3.75, the 4%, et cetera? Do you think those would actually stand a chance of having to increase?
Today, 20 years, 4% for a community such as Birmingham would be relatively conservative. So last week I had 3 bond sales, all 20 years, all for communities with at least 2 notches below. One of them was an A+, so you're talking 3 notches below Birmingham. They were all under 4%.
Okay.
So where the market goes from here, I don't know. I think rates have come up a little bit this week. Next week they'll probably go down. They've kind of been holding right around that 4% mark for 20 years, though.
Okay, good. Now, the other thing that I really like about these tables, and again, thank you for the detail, because I hadn't actually done the maths myself, so you saved me from my own laziness. The bottom line number as to what the total principal and interest payments would be. We talk about, in this case, let's look at the 20-year, a $32 million bond. But I think everybody needs to understand that by the time we finish paying for it, it's $48 million that the community's paid. It's 50% more than the actual bond issue. And I believe that needs to be part of the education, because 32 million is one pill, but when people start doing the maths and come up with 48, that's a horse pill that you're trying to swallow without water. So these tables are enormously helpful. I just wanted to say thank you to you for that because they helped me a lot.
You're welcome.
I appreciated that. Now, to sort of circle back around, the total cost. Unfortunately, I think the feeling right now is we're looking at a one-time cost. And one of the things that we have been asking for repeatedly is, what's it going to cost to run? We don't know what the operating costs are. And so what we're doing is we're coming up with an estimate of a cost for a building that we don't have a programming defined for yet. It's on its way. We don't have an operating cost defined yet. It's on its way. And we're saying that this is the maximum, and yet we want to have a size. I'm struggling with how do we choose the size of something if we don't know what it's going to contain and how much it's going to cost to run, because we don't have a budget assigned for running a building like this today. So now there has to be a budget from somebody's accounting somewhere that pays for the operating costs. Yes, there's been discussion of the YMCA would take on some, all, whatever that may be, but I don't think they can make a commitment for that until they know what that number is themselves. So to me, this is almost like half the picture. To educate the community, it's not just a case of this is what you're going to pay out of pocket to get it. The community needs to know, what are you going to pay out of pocket, if anything, to run it? Because one of the worst things we could do is at 32 million, which I also am struggling with that being enough, quite honestly, with the asks we have, I don't think it's a big enough number. We end up with a shell. It sits there on 400 East Lincoln. Everyone looks at each other and goes, oops, we can't afford to turn the lights on. What do we do now? Well, let's issue another bond or another millage. And we've got to remember that this one, by the time, if we submit it and if it passes, it's going to run concurrently with the 3-year senior millage as well. So that 3-year senior millage actually does burn off after the 3 years. But that was sold under the premise of this is a one-time thing for a very short duration. Is there going to be something else coming? We don't know. And I'm not comfortable not knowing. As a professional project manager, as the only person in the room that's got the certification, this project is rated red. There is no containment plan. You can't pass the gate. The gate is exactly what we're debating right now. Do we go for a bond issue or not? As a professional project manager, you are not allowed to pass the gate following the rules from the PMI. You can't. You don't have all the data.
Mayor.
Commissioner Host.
I'm sorry to have you guys standing there, but I'm surprised and disappointed to see that the special election discussions on tonight's agenda, I have several concerns. As far as the timing, you could say scheduling a special election is putting the cart before the horse, and we don't even have a cart or a horse. We're not settled on a bunch of things, including the project's name, which I think should be the community center, but we haven't decided on the programming or the funding of the ongoing operation. These are real framework issues that need to be decided on. We have no idea what the architects from the RFP, and as I voted, I think it's premature to have them. We have no idea what they're going to come up with. And even if we were further along in our planning, asking Birmingham taxpayers to pay $41,500 for a special election focused on this project is beyond tone deaf. In fact, I think it's indefensible. Special elections are emergencies. Erecting a community center, which a fraction of our citizens are going to enjoy, is not an emergency. Wet basements are an emergency. Infrastructure that's 100 years old in unpaved roads, those are emergencies. Another emergency is the police station with minimal standards. special elections are hard to win. There's always heightened scrutiny and lots of skepticism. And when you're asking for a tax increase, you better be addressing a true priority, a true emergency, and have all your ducks and your carts and your horses in a row. Right now, we don't have anything in a row. We have platitudes. I understand we need a new home for next. In fact, it's nice that we're discussing a community center. But putting this issue in front of the voters prematurely will ensure failure and delay. Let's get the hard planning work done first, get our priorities straight, and be ready with a defensible ask sometime in the future. Lastly, we're going to build something that's $32 million, and we're going to ask our taxpayers in a special election to have us build it. That's ridiculous.
Commissioner Emmerine.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what most of the other commissioners said. With regards to the naming, it was brought up at the ad hoc committee at the last meeting, potentially changing the name. We wanted to bring that to the city commission. Sounds like everyone's kind of agreeing to that right now. With regards to the timing, I'd like to echo what Commissioner Long said. Basically the same thing. May sounds too early. And it sounds like we're about to get a lot of data in about 2 weeks. And this bond issue, should it go out in May, we have to decide by February 10th, the same time that we're going to get all this data. It sounds too quick to me. Whether it goes to August or November, that remains to be seen, but I think May is too quick. So my preference would be to, let's get this data. Let's not push this forward now. Let's understand what we're getting into before we move forward. That's it.
Thank you.
I have one more comment.
Yes.
I think the sentiment here is that you might consider us, aside from the city staff, as the most informed people in the community as to what's going on. In fact, people ask me all the time, what's that about? I'm like, we don't know about that. But with regard to this, we are the most informed, and we don't know what it is. We know what we want it to be. We know what we've talked about it could be. But having sat here for the last 3 years and watching everything move at a very deliberately slow pace, I can't imagine, like you said, February 11th, and we're getting the data on February 10th. That just feels very, very not right. And we are the most informed. So if we're going to go to the community, which is made up of multiple elements of informed and completely uninformed and paying attention and not paying attention, we owe them a whole lot more if we want this to be successful. So, yeah, TBD.
Thank you. So I want to go back to the naming and the language, if I could. So yes, I think that the naming needs to be revised, as Commissioner Host put out. It does say senior/recreation, but nobody notices the slash. It just reads as senior recreation. It needs to be called perhaps a new community center that is planned to encompass community recreation for all ages and dedicated senior programming. I think we need to be very clear about where we want to go. That is where we want to go. And there's the most frequent criticism you hear of bond language is it doesn't really tell you what you're voting. So I think if we want to have any chance, we need to take another look at the language so people actually understand what we're asking for. And I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner House that the word community needs to be in the title and in the language. And so that can come, you guys can go back and work on that. I agree that the May 6th bond election is inadvisable. Part of it is that the dynamics of elections have changed with early voting, and we saw for the November election, early voting absentee ballots were a large part of the turnout in Birmingham. They're often up north of 50%. And if absentee ballots hit the mail March 21st, and we have not had a chance to get to people, to educate people, the phrase is that confused voters vote no. So I also want to quote Tom Marcus when he said, the number one rule of municipal government is to give everybody time to get on the train. And so I don't think March 6th is enough time. It's not enough time for us to develop a narrative to tell the story and to give those constituencies who may want to advocate for this time to get organized to do it, because that takes time too. They may have to form PACs. They may have to raise money. If somebody wants to do that legally and pay for signs and so forth, that takes time and organization. And asking the community to do that in this short of a time period, I don't think is likely to happen. An August vote, which I think is still possible, given a discussion of a special election as a sidebar, it adds 3 months to this project. I don't think that is an impermissible delay in order for us to get the narrative down, to develop a story that we can share with people, to have pictures, to have a defined example. As Commissioner Schaefer said, we are the most informed. I'm surprised at the number of people that I talk to in the community who don't know that there's a survey out, who haven't followed this project at all. There are people who show up in November and who don't know what's on the ballot, as we said. We like to think that Birmingham is a fairly informed and attentive community, but frankly, people are very busy. They have children, they have lives, they have commitments. And the number of times we've had people show up in front of us on the day we were deciding something that we have been promoting for months and have had numerous public hearings about it, other subboards, and they show up on the very last minute and say, you never told me about this. I didn't know about this. I didn't hear about it. It happens frequently enough that we need to understand that and schedule around it. So it doesn't sound like there's any consensus on the commission to move forward with a vote on this issue tonight. I think we can look at potentially August. I would be very interested in seeing what a timeline that encompassed an August bond vote would look like, how much time it would give all the parties to work, how many public meetings we could schedule, listening sessions, a schedule for materials, social media posts, all those things. I think we'd be much more likely to be successful if we had that additional 3 months. And I think we all agree that the bond language needs to be improved. I don't know if there are any further comments, but it sounds like the consensus is to take no action on this evening.
I have one question.
Yes.
So with regards to philanthropy and things like that and naming rights, I would imagine if you went out to the greater community to say there were naming rights for the pool that we don't know is actually in this building yet, or naming rights on the building itself, which could solicit people to donate, potentially millions of dollars. But of course, you wouldn't want to put naming rights until you knew what you were getting. So I also wonder if there's opportunity for philanthropy and where that falls in the timeline, because there could be significant dollar amounts that decrease what we're asking for. And I don't know at what point that's appropriate, or if I know we've talked about it in the past, but I didn't know where we stood with that, or if anyone had shown interest or even knew there was an opportunity.
Yes, we have talked about it in the past. Yes, people have shown an interest in it. We are not that far along because, as you said, we need to have that final program, and then we need to have at least in concept a design that we're going to move forward with. So we're going to be coming up to that time point in the next couple of months where we would be able to go out and put the word out that, hey, if anybody wants to do that and have a naming rights for the building as a whole, that we could do that. We have talked to several people who may be interested in doing that.
Commissioner Long.
Individuals or families or trusts that want to put their name on a building want to know what the building is going to look like. They want to know who is it's going to serve. They want to know a lot more questions that we're unable to answer right now, not through any fault of a strong effort to try and move this forward, and everybody's been working super hard, but it's just not going to happen until we get further along, which is another reason why the May date is a problem. I have one question, though. If we did a August vote, what's the date in August?
You did mention that.
Usually it's like the first week.
First Tuesday, second Tuesday?
August 5th. and so-
August 5th. And yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, from a timing standpoint, everything really pushes back 3 months. So the deadline for having ballot language finalized ends up being that second Tuesday of the month, which I think would be May 13th. That would be the equivalent to the February 11th date in which the ballot proposal would need to be finalized and filed with the city clerk.
Right, and August 5th minus 45 days for voting, absentee ballot voting, moves that back
Mid-June.
to mid-June. So, you think of an August vote right now, and but you start putting those dates in line, and it's earlier than you think, and May's even earlier. I mean, you're talking about less than 60 days for a May vote. So, again, I'm not happy about it. I know that others aren't happy about it, but we need to do this right and give it the best opportunity and give the best chance to educate the community, to educate potential donors, to educate people who may be interested in naming rights, and get it done properly in the proper time, and that's through no lack of effort on everybody involved. But I think it gives the best chance.
Yes.
Just to follow up, this is very helpful feedback and commentary from the commission. I just want to clarify, when I said that I took the name from the ad hoc committee, I didn't mean the name of the committee, but the discussion, because I agree with you.
Don't worry, we're not worried about it.
But I think you're right, because I think it is very important to figure out the name. What do you want to call this to be able to convey to the voters, as you say, that top line, what we call this bond proposal, is going to be important for people to understand the building. And senior/recreation is awkward to say. I left out the slash, but it changed the meaning. Community center has a different meaning. So I think, and really, it's your building. So I think it's not the ad hoc committee or me to decide what we should call this. I think that's something that's important to get the wording correct, to convey what the building is for. And, I've heard a couple different ideas, senior/recreation and community center, or, community center for recreation and senior services. There's different ways that you can play with that, trying to convey the element of senior center, recreation, community. And I think that having a short title of the building that you want to call it helps with that branding and marketing, and then including in the text what is going to be a component. But I do agree that I think that's pretty important to know what you want to call it, and that helps dictate how that messaging goes to the community. So this is helpful.
Really, really briefly, this project has morphed numerous times. I've talked about this so many times. So you are the last person to have to, worry about or apologize or anything else with regard to the name. We need to get the name right because this project has morphed over the time period. And so, we will get the appropriate name, but.
So if the commission doesn't have any more questions for the two esteemed and informative gentlemen, we'll let you take your leave and sit down, and then we're not going to, the commission's not going to make a motion that we're going to act on, but I do want to invite public comment at this time. If anybody would like to add comment to the discussion this evening, we'll do in the room first. Please state your name, address, and hold your comment to roughly 3 minutes, and then we'll go online using the raise your hand function.
Hi, George Dogard, 1619 Fairway. I have a question for Pat. Is it possible with the bond language to put into language the expected typical costs per household? For example, this project, it's going to work out to, if it's 20-year bond, it's going to work out to about $200 per household. Can you answer that?
Yeah. So what I have up there is the language with the estimated millage impact is what's required by state law. So that has to be in there. But your comment is, could we help explain that further? I think the answer is yes. If I've seen sometimes we've said something like for a average home of X million dollars taxable value, this will cost approximately Y dollars per year. So then again, it's more numbers in there, and you have to decide what do you want to use for sort of the average house. But that is something that could be done in that same paragraph about the millage impact to kind of provide a little more information like that.
And then if I could make a comment?
Yes.
If you recall, the estimates that Mark Gerber gave us a couple of months ago on what the estimated amount would be for a millage on the average house, now that we have these bond schedules and the debt service, we know exactly what it would be. So based on this schedule, it's actually would be lower than I think we quoted for a 20-year bond at that time, $211 for the average house. The average house having a taxable value, well, basically about $630,000 house, $315,000 taxable value. That would actually go down with this schedule from $211 to $164 per year. Just so you all know, Mark gave us a very conservative estimate, and now we have the actual numbers, at least for now. If we move it to August, we'll update them as we get closer. But to your point, could you put that in there? If Mr. McGow is saying, yes, you could, I think that is helpful to some people to understand what it's going to equate to for the average homeowner. Or you could also put it per $1,000 of value.
Well, it's written in there as a per $1,000 of value right now.
Right.
So that's the millage rate, and that's also required by state law. To say
Well, the
millage
last
rate.
sentence, you got parentheses, dollar per $1,000 of her taxable value, close parentheses.
Correct.
So it really is already, and it's, pick a random number, 54 cents per $1,000. Then it's maths.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, and this is where it gets confusing, because a lot of people think my house is worth $630,000, but the taxable value is $315,000. So again, getting back to, I'm not sure everybody knows that taxable value isn't the same thing as market value. Taxable value is half or less. So that's where it starts to get confusing to convey in a ballot how much this is going to cost you. People have to either do some math or we have to use some average.
That's the
And we have the
educational
average
part.
taxable value at $315 based on all of the data that we have at this time.
I will say that personally, I like it the way I wrote it, because I think when you start putting in more numbers and examples, it gets confusing. But I also understand the point that, hey, for an average homeowner, what does this mean in dollars? I don't want to have to do the math. So-
Well, I think for the Parks and Rec bond, we had an FAQ sheet, and that kind of information was there and printed out and shared with people. So is there other public comment in the room? Going once, going twice. Online, I see KJHB with their hand raised. So if we can unmute that person and let them state their name, address, and make a 3-minute comment.
Yes, hi, this is Christy Barrett, and I just want to make a comment on taxable value. I don't understand, if you're looking at a 20-year bond and we have taxable values go up 8% per year, why are you using an SEV of $300,000 when for the most part, that's going to be gone in 3 years? So it seems to me there should be a real number, forward-thinking, the same way that Birmingham does a 5-year, 10-year plan on what the real SEVs are. And I said earlier when I spoke that that average SEV, well not SEV, but average taxable value is, when you look at only home sales for the last 4 years, the mean, not the average, is over $900,000. That's today.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we'll bring it back to the commission. Any final comments before we move on to the next agenda item?
I was just saying, I just think that Mr. Dogard's comment about educating, your example of somebody that shows up to vote in November and has no clue, or on the way asks their neighbor, how they're voting, is kind of what my experience is in for a certain percentage of our community, and having somebody read this on the day of and say, oh, it's going to cost me $164 for the first year, and it's going to cost me $300 in 10 years, is going to do the education part that I am so concerned about, again, to make sure that we give this the best possible option of getting approved.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to old item C, new item D? Resolution to direct staff to issue the RFP for construction management services. And that is also Ms. Ecker, I think, to start.
Mr. Deming actually
Mr.
is going to be
Deming, all
presenting
right.
this, and he's already sitting up there, so I think he's good to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Deming from Kramer Management Group, our owner's representative.
Thank you for the introduction. So this, what we're asking for here is really to add the last major player to the team putting information together. And even with the previous conversation, we feel it's really important to bring them on board to put out the RFP. The construction manager is to provide the effective management of the project schedule, cost, quality, safety, and scope. But during this design process, they actively participate in developing the budget and reviewing the constructability of what the architect, of what Newman Smith puts together. So I think that if what we're looking at now for if we're going for an August bond vote, I would say that if you look at your schedule, I'm going to just kind of hop around just because of the conversation we just had, but page 10 of the RFP lays out a full schedule. Because this is the partner that's going to eventually sign on the dotted line to deliver the project for a guaranteed maximum price. The way we've laid out the schedule here, this was going to be around early December of this year that they would put that together. But what I would suggest is that the advantage, or why we recommend this, is to bring them on board at this point is because as Newman Smith is completing schematic design, then you have a partner that is now under contract, i.e. has skin in the game for the project, to produce a budget that they're backing up. So now when we all come back to present to City Commission the results of the schematic design, we also have a budget from the construction manager to go with that for evaluating the schematic design piece of it. And the schedule that's laid out here of, delivering the building in line with the agreement that Next has with Birmingham Public Schools can still work if we continue to move through the design process, through the design development phase of the project. So I guess what I'm saying is if we continue to go through this, we'll have more review time, we'll have more documents produced for review inside of this, as long as we keep marching along with that.
So you don't think it would be important to give Newman Smith, say, an extra month in this schedule? If we're going to add 3 months,
yeah,
you're saying you still would want to maintain your schedule for May 31, 2027, even if we move the bond issue back? You don't think there's any benefit to giving more review time, reflection, integration time in the schedule that, as you've laid it out?
I'll let Jim Stock speak to that, but I don't think so. I think this is a normal process, and the schedule that we have in there is fair for them to develop schematic design, produce it to this commission for review and comment, and then go back into the next phase with this schedule to do the design development aspect of it, which would then produce another round of review, another budget for the project, to be able to maintain the schedule to get it built in time for what's in front of us with Next.
Yeah, and hi, I'm Jim Stock with Newman Smith, and as Shanna pointed out earlier, we're building momentum. We want to keep that momentum going right now. And within 93 hours from now, we're going to have program information from the Y and their partners. So we'll be able to put together that program that we're all desperately needing to understand and to look at and to evaluate. So we're not estimators. We're architects. We like bringing a construction manager on board very early in the process, as Brian explained, to understand where we're going in terms of design, in terms of understanding the square footage of the building. Within schematic design, they're going to be placing square foot costs on the building. They're not going to say window wall systems are X. They're going to be giving us square foot costs. And once we start to define that, working with the construction manager, because they have the pulse on the industry where things are going right now, they'll be able to better accurately describe the cost of the building early on. That's why it's really crucial for this process to get them on board right now. So.
Thank you.
I guess, but just more directly, with the schedule we have for schematic design, is that fair, knowing what we're going to have with this programming piece of it? Is the timeline for producing the schematic design still fair for you to develop a valid work plan?
Yes. We can still work with this schedule. We knew the schedule going in. We've backed into the schedule. Yes. We can make this work.
The schematic design schedule on this page says December 9th to March 17th, and it's January 13th. So schematic design's been underway for a month or not, because you're still waiting for the program?
Oh, it has. We started, let me go back to my notes here.
December 10th, I believe he started.
Okay.
We have, yes. Yeah.
And at the SCC meeting, I forget whether it was December 18th or January 8th, because I watched both of them. I think it's important to point out, someone asked you, should we approve this RFP, how much money would we spend before the bond vote? And when the bond vote was going to be May 6th, you said a maximum of $25,000 probably. Would that still hold if the bond vote was in August?
No, I should say something about that. Is now I would look at that. Now we'd have the construction manager do two estimates. They would do a schematic design estimate at schematic design to support that review process, and then a second estimate at the end of design development. So I would say that would approximately double. But I also want to point out that right now we've only authorized Newman Smith through schematic design, but we have their costs if we were to ask them to proceed and do design development.
Well, that is an interesting conundrum, because the commission had been unwilling to move into design development until we have a successful bond vote. So I'm not sure how we hold to, and that is probably likely still true, though we can take the temperature. But so I'm not sure that we can keep to this schedule. A separate estimate after design development would be awesome. Many projects, hit a wall when the construction estimates come in much higher than anybody expected, and then everybody runs back and does value engineering and dumbs everything down and shrinks it up to hit budget, which we would like not to do. But I don't believe that the commission wanted to authorize design development costs, which is where it starts to get expensive, if this has not been voted on by the community. So that is an interesting question, whether we can hold to this schedule, even though that is your preference.
Does issuing the RFP mean that we have to hold the schedule, or is there flexibility?
Well, so portions of the cost would change if we then change the schedule, much the same as they may change with Newman Smith if we change the schedule. So, because it's now you're having the people working for you now have more meetings, more effort inside of what that is. That's why I'm proposing that you'd move from schematic design into design development with this time in order to maintain a schedule that produces a building to support next.
Where are the funds coming from? Because now it's another level of spending for something that we haven't agreed to do. Where do the funds come from for that? Because like you said, that's when it starts getting spendy. Back to carts and horses, I think.
Yeah, because you're looking at, you're spending more effort to get more detailed plans, renderings, estimates. So you're to get the answers, to have a more detailed presentation for presentation to the public. It's requiring spending more money to get there, to get to that level of detail.
I'm not sure that the commission asked for more detailed information to present to the public by delaying to an August bond vote. I think that we thought, I'm quite sure that we think that what you are going to produce isn't going to be available in time to adequately share it with the public, educate the public, engage with the constituencies in order to have a successful May vote. I don't think we're asking for more work before August. I naively thought that that if we moved the August bond vote, if we added 3 months, we were stretching the schedule out 3 months, all the steps. Does that mean that there might be a few extra meetings in there? There could be, but not significantly different workflow, just as Commissioner Haig would say, is, adding some time to the Gantt chart down the line entirely.
I would say it allows a little bit more refinement, and I know you said you agreed to the timeline, but I've never met anyone that said, oh, you want to give me more time? No, it's okay.
Right.
I'm sure you would actually choose to benefit from it.
It's a function of fee as well.
Understood, but we're looking at levels of, as my colleague kind of described it, we're not necessarily looking to go to that large, major next step. It's refinement of what we've got and allowing us the time to do the education with what you give us.
Yeah.
Understood.
Because you've heard me saying, I need data to be able to take a step.
Understood. And as a professional service vendor, trying to help you with the problem, knowing that we are targeting a May 6th, when you back into it and look at the dates and look at the meetings and the amount of work that needs to be produced, it is what it is. I can't stretch time. We can only work as quickly as we can to meet your date. This is the date that was published, that we said we could meet, and we're prepared to do so if needed. But it's up to the commission to make that decision, whether we stick with May or push to August.
I guess my thought is that like their work may be done, but our work won't be done yet. I guess that's the way I see it. Like if you had a 3D model here and we had it, sitting in Shane Park that everyone could come see it.
Yeah, that's not crazy yet.
I know, but even if we had that today, right? Made out of Legos, and we had a digital version we could email to the whole community. We still don't have enough time to get enough momentum behind it. So your work may be done by the date, and then we say, great, thanks for all of that. Give us 3 months to put it out into the world and, put a little sugar on it if that's what's needed so that we can get the community behind it. So if we had it today, I still don't think we have enough time. So your timeline may remain, and then we'll say, thank you for getting this to us so quickly so we can tell the community about it.
Right. The Parks and Rec bond, which was $11.5-ish million, we had a much longer lead time for that. We had established constituencies who had been lobbying for it and were activated. We had the Adams Park Group. We had the very active hockey people for the ice arena. We had pickleball people. We had soccer people. We had Little League people. We had I want new play equipment in my neighborhood people. And we had a lot longer lead time to hit the ground running with defined constituencies who were interested and who were willing to advocate and go speak to their neighbors and have Saturday lawn sign pickups and so forth. And there's no way that we can do this justice by the March 22nd absentee ballot drop date. There is just not. So,
Well, I think we made that part of the decision. Now it's just how to
yes,
execute
but so,
from this.
that affects this schedule. We're not trying to be difficult. We're not trying to throw a monkey wrench in. We are trying to get to success the best way we can.
But could you halt it at the schematic design review and commission approval, which is in March, and then let the summer simmer it? Like, could you stop it there? And then, their design development drops back a little bit once the vote, goes in August, for example. So they get the summer off. I'm just kidding, but, give... Could they just stop at the March, April time and then give us that time to?
Well, additionally, as Brian was trying to explain, those 3 months were design development months. So we're figuring out how the building stands up, how it's heated and cooled. So we're doing drawing during that time, going into design development drawings, and it goes into construction documents. So it is compressing our time to do drawings, coordinate drawings properly and accurately, reducing requests for information and errors and things like that, trying to hit the date for next, right?
Okay,
So you're
stop
kind of
a sec.
compressing that piece.
Stop, though.
Yes.
What you're doing is you're assuming compression upon compression right now in the plan. The compression was already that there is a building turnover date. Now, 2027, yes, I know the school gave us a date and they gave us an extension.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can't figure out between January 2025 and May 31st, 2027, a plan on how we can accommodate any timing change, then we shouldn't be doing the project to begin with. We have 2 years to come up with containment. And it's containment. It's not an alternative plan. It's containment of a date move. Remember I said gates and risks.
Of course.
Risk mitigation plan is part of a gate release. A risk mitigation plan right now would be, for this piece of the puzzle, what is the plan for adjusting the final date? I'm saying it as a statement. I'm not asking you to come up with the answer. I'm saying that's the statement of how you set up your project risk. What do? We have 2 years ultimately to figure it out. There are a ton of different pathways. Inside my head, I'm on plan D already.
Mm-hmm.
This is plan A. I've looked at a plan B. There's a plan C. I'm trying to think of a plan D for this project because it's about containment, alternatives. Right now, this is a Hail Mary. Everything's going to work. It's fine. It's not. It's not there. We proved that with the bond discussion. So what we have to do now is look at a containment plan. The question to you is, if there is a 3-month delay, what does that do? If it moves the end date 3 months, that's one of your answers. And it's not the wrong answer. It's an answer.
Of course. There are strategies. To answer your question, there are strategies.
Yes.
Right? So you'd have to scrutinize the construction schedule. Right? There's things you can do. Right? You could work 2 shifts for construction, but what does that do? That adds cost to construction.
Yes.
Right? You can start putting out multiple bid packs. You can get into construction earlier with multiple bid packs. You can send out a foundation pack early. You can do an early structural steel pack. So you can start getting those portions of the building earlier and under construction. While we're still drawing the inside, figuring out the inside and finishes and things like that, construction packages could be on the street and you can start construction. So those are methodologies that we use to start compressing construction time. So it's a conversation that we'll need to have with the construction manager, with Brian, internally our team, to understand how long it's going to take for us to draw the building. So
perhaps the way of asking the question to kind of get to the point that my colleagues have been trying to get to, and Jason, maybe you can help out a bit more because it's much more your field, but I'm just looking at it from a project management standpoint. The question is, could you give us a couple of high-level, not looking at detail, high-level alternatives of what it could do? And to me, you gave alternatives. Another one is the end date moves.
Of course.
That's also an alternative.
Absolutely.
Because as Commissioner Schaefer said, we need to start, once we have tangibles, to go and start educating. Without the education process, it's DOA. It's DOA today.
Fair enough.
It's as simple as that. We wouldn't be able to make it succeed. Your work is critical to us, so please don't misunderstand that. Really, really looking forward to what you got. But then we need to go to work.
Sure. I understand that.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at you because I'm craning my neck around at Brian otherwise. But Brian, can you put down some alternatives so that maybe when we talk about this in 2 weeks' time, these are points that we can come into to help with this conversation, because we clearly have hurdles, but they're not insurmountable hurdles.
Yeah.
But we need to look at what's the pathway here, what's the pathway there, because there is clearly a desire for success. There is no desire for failure, but there is an awareness that failure is an option that's out there still. Thank you.
So to bring it back, it doesn't sound like the commission is opposed to the RFP for this service. We understand the value of the cost benefit. The issue becomes, do you need this approved tonight? And in order to release the RFP, could we wait 2 weeks? And if you need it approved tonight, we would want some modification to this schedule, perhaps.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, I would say that I would still request that we release this. I would modify this schedule to be in line now. I would just still look to have the construction manager sign up for that schematic design estimate, so the approximately $25,000. I would adjust the schedule to show that, and I would change the language from the May bond vote to be an August bond vote for this point. But the proposal that we would get from them would still be for the full project, so then we've captured the team member for that full cost.
Okay. And from watching the SCC meetings, they were very complimentary about the RFP itself, and I'll take their word for that. They thought it was excellent work. Nobody had any major issues with it, and that's what we relied upon them to do. So I don't know if there's any other commission discussion on this before someone would like to make a motion, and then we can get public comment.
I'll make a motion if we want. Unless anyone else has something to say first? No? All good? All right. The two sentences on top of the way you described it, and it's all on record. So, approve a resolution to direct staff to issue the RFP for construction management services for the new senior recreation centre at 400 East Lincoln as recommended by the SCC on December 18th, 2024.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Comment on the motion? Commissioner Host.
I'm not going to vote for it because I didn't vote for Newman Smith, and it wasn't personal. Newman Smith is wonderful, but I want to be consistent. This is too fast.
Any other comment? Commissioner Emery.
I'll just add that having this construction manager on board to provide this cost is exactly the information we need. We need to have this in order to move this project forward. Asking an architect or an owner's rep or an engineer or anybody to put cost to this is not a reasonable request. This is what this person is for. We need to know what this dollar amount is in order to move this project forward.
Commissioner Hay.
I'm going to echo that because I make the motion because I know it's a small step in the process. It's a constrained spend, and it's a necessary step to get more information because several of us here don't even twitch without data on the table in our own fields. So, yes, please.
All
Baby
right.
step.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the motion in the room? Please come up to the microphone if you have something you'd like to add.
Christine Allen. I am a board member at Next. I am a resident of Beverly Hills. I just want to second that thought and encourage you to continue with this RFP in the time frame, because I am also a certified PMI project manager, so I understand everything he's saying. And having worked with many schedules, I know what these two gentlemen are working with, and I know that if we don't continue certain things on that critical path, we are not going to succeed, and we will never hit that May 27 date. And as a board member of Next, I feel very firmly that we need to hit that date. We've done everything I think we can with the school board, and that is a firm date. And I'm not sure that there's an alternative for keeping the senior services up if we miss that date. It will be very difficult. So thank you for your consideration, and thank you for letting me make my comment. I hope you vote for getting that RFP out. Thanks.
Okay. I do not see any public comment online. I will acknowledge that both Chris Braun from Next are in the room, and there's a representative from the YMCA in the room. And so if you would like to add comment to the discussion, this is your opportunity. I want to make sure you're aware of that. Looks like no and no. All right, thank you very much. So bringing it back to the commission, Ms. Bingham, could we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Haig?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
No.
Mayor Therese Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Another step. Thank you, Mr. Deming. Thank you, Mr. McGow. Thank you for everyone who's here with interest in this project. All right, now we move to item E, commission items for future discussion. A motion is required to bring the item for future discussion up at the next reasonable agenda. No discussion on the topic will happen tonight. Do we have anything on this side of the room? None? Anything on this side of the room? None. Commission discussion on items for a prior meeting. We have none. Resolution to meet in closed session to discuss pending litigation regarding Phase 3 Properties LLC versus the City of Birmingham. Ms. Kucharik.
Yes, I am requesting closed session to discuss this pending litigation. At the conclusion, I will be asking the commission to take action in the form of approving a resolution and potentially another document that I'll discuss with you in closed session.
All right, thank you very much. So a roll call vote is required. The vote must be approved by a 2/3 majority of the commission. The commission will adjourn to closed session after all other business has been addressed in open session, and we will reconvene to open session after the closed session for the purposes of taking the actions Ms. Kucharik just described. So do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion. Should I make the motion first? I'd like to make a motion to meet in closed session to discuss the pending litigation regarding Phase 3 Properties LLC versus City of Birmingham pursuant to MCL 15.268 Section 8(1)(e) of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any comment on the motion? Any comment on the motion from the public? Any comment online? I see none. Ms. Bingham, roll call vote.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine?
Yes.
Mayor Therese Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Haig?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Thank you. We move to remove the consent agenda. We've already handled that. Communications. We have a communication from Michael Clift regarding the previous commission election. We have a communication from Zach Sklar in favor of a project that is discussed under city staff reports. We move to reports. We have commissioner reports. Notice of intention to appoint to the Ad Hoc Senior Recreation Center Committee. We are advertising for an engineer to replace Mr. Emmerine, Commissioner Emmerine. We have a notice of intention to appoint to the Stormwater Utility Appeals Board and a notice of intention to appoint to the Planning Board for an alternate, also to replace Commissioner Emmerine. So you should be able to do three things at once.
Sorry.
Commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments this evening? None on this side of the room? Any on this side of the room? None. Advisory boards, commissions, reports, and agendas. We have the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Board annual report in our packet. Did anyone have anything to add to that? No, it was very informative, and they seem to be progressing well, sending grave sites, and with good ideas for priorities for the coming year. Legislation, city staff. We have a report from Mr. Dupuy on 180 South Chester Street parking structure proposal. Is there discussion of that, Ms.
We don't need to have presentation of the report. You saw what we presented to you because we did have somebody come for a pre-application discussion at the planning board, so we wanted to bring it up for discussion at the city commission level. You've indicated, or Mr. Dupuy has laid out all of the potential issues and things that would have to be discussed. With any type of development, generally speaking, it would go to the planning board only because this is something that they are looking to propose on public property, city-owned property. They would also have to come to the city commission for a lease, a long-term lease arrangement at the very least, to come forward with this. So I think we're looking for feedback, I guess, as for the applicant who is expressed an interest in doing this project, as to whether that's something that the commission is looking to entertain.
I think that one thing that needs to be added to the discussion is that, that is not in this report, is that the previous action we took this evening to restripe the Chester parking deck and meet the ADA compliance removes 67 spaces and takes it down to 810. I also will note that over 1,100 monthly parking passes are sold for that deck. So I think the idea of taking 175 spaces offline for the lease is problematic. Not to only say that for a structure with a 600-seat capacity, moving 600 people in and out of that deck in a short period of time, there are, as Mr. Dupuy said, a host of issues, but it would be, I think, helpful for the applicant if there's a consensus about whether anyone on the commission is interested in pursuing this. So I'll start at this end.
Not in the slightest.
All right. And your concerns are?
Do you want a list that's short or long?
I'm short.
Okay. Structural, safety, what's in it for the city, taking parking offline, the conversation we had about restoration hardwares, rooftop dining, and all of the concerns with that, the opening hours, liabilities.
That's comprehensive and short. Commissioner Long?
I have a real big concern about liabilities.
So you are not in support?
I am not in support.
This end of the Commissioner Host?
I applaud you, Mayor, for stating it very nicely, which is, hey, we're going to lose 67 parking spots.
Already. All right. Good.
Nothing to add on from what's already been said.
All right. And Commissioner Shaver?
Yeah, not long list of concerns, but I will say I appreciate the creativity because there may be another opportunity in some other venture. So I appreciate the creativity, but I think there's a host of issues: parking, liability, competition, whatever it might be. So.
Yeah, and a concern, I think, about the impact that a structure of this sort would have on the lifetime maintenance and safety of the deck itself, which is our primary responsibility. So, all right, so not an indication that the commission is interested in pursuing this. Okay, the next report is on the Village Fair. Very thorough report from Chief Gruey that the consensus is that it will close at 9 p.m. and that there will be discussion each evening. So I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that. Nope. All right. Any questions? Chief? All right. So then we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. we recording? Okay. We are reconvening from closed session, and Commissioner Long, would you please make the appropriate resolution?
I think the first one is that we're going to authorize the execution of the consent judgment. Is that the first?
Either,
Either?
yeah,
Okay, or does this take care of everything?
that should. Go
Okay.
ahead and read it and let's see everything.
You want me to read everything on the whole page, or just start with the whereas?
Whereas.
Okay, that's what I thought. Whereas the Birmingham City Commission was served with a lawsuit entitled Phase 3 Properties LLC versus City of Birmingham, Oakland County Circuit Court Case Number 2024-211-615-C as in Charles, H as in Harold, the Honorable Mary Ellen Brennan, and whereas the Birmingham City Commission recognizes that a proposed consent judgment regarding resolution and interest in land has been proposed, and whereas the city has reviewed the consent judgment and matters surrounding the quiet title action, and whereas the city attorney has reviewed and approved of the consent judgment regarding resolution and interest in land. Now therefore be it resolved, the City Commission does hereby approve the proposed consent judgment regarding resolution and interest in land in connection with the litigation titled Phase 3 Properties LLC versus City of Birmingham, Oakland County Circuit Court Case Number 2024-211-615-C as in Charles, H as in Harold, Honorable Mary Ellen Brennan, which will resolve all claims in connection with said litigation. Be it further resolved that the city attorney is hereby authorized to execute the consent judgment on behalf of the City of Birmingham.
Second.
You have a second? Any discussion on the motion? I would ask for public comment, but there is none in the room or online, so roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Anthony Long.
Yes.
Commissioner Haig.
Yes.
Commissioner Host.
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich.
Yes.
Mayor Therese Long.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
And thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.